How's it going? Working on my introductions. Welcome to another episode of a bonus video that I do because I like doing this stuff and want to also do a fun video for people who support the channel on Patreon and YouTube memberships. Like last time, like the one I did last week, I am just going to react to this and give commentary on it. I find that, this... I'm pretty pumped. I mean, last week we were talking about the Bill Maher and Jordan Peterson conversation. It was more of a conversation than a debate. This is going to be more of a debate than a conversation. But I like both, especially this. This should be interesting. I also know Sam Cedar, who I enjoy watching his commentary on his show, The Majority Report. I believe, he recorded one of these episodes and it's going to be out soon, so I'm pumped to watch that too, and maybe I'll do a video for that too. But yeah, I just wanted to, do this. Maybe, in the past I would have done this as a live stream, but, like I said last time, I'm not really into live streaming. It doesn't have to be live, you know what I mean? You could just watch it later. It doesn't have to be live, so. Hope you're doing great, and let's get into this. Let's just see what's going on. I'm going into this totally open-minded. You know what I mean? I don't, should people do activism for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and other people? Just totally neutral on that issue. Activism. I love that they call them activists, because if it was one conservative versus 25 LGBTQ plus people, then you'd be like, that sounds, weird, right? Like, why is he against them? But they have to call them activists, even though, these are just people who do activism. The word activist is interesting. It's like one step away from terrorist to like a right winger. So, Michael Knowles, interesting person. I talk about him in my video on Plato's Symposium as discussed by PragerU. And I find Michael Knowles to be... So, I talked about Jordan Peterson, Bill Maher last time, who are, different from each other. As I was saying, Jordan Peterson is more of an ideologue. Bill Maher is more of an entertainer. Here, Michael Knowles is definitely an ideologue more than an entertainer. But he does come from an entertainment background, from what I understand. I think he did theater. I want to say at Yale. He went to Yale. Did he do theater? Is there a quick... Yeah, acting. Before graduating from Yale, participated in 2 web series, Never Do Business with Friends and Survive Upon Graduation. Knowles trained with Wynn Handman in his acting studio in New York City and appeared in various web series, films, and television shows. So he, like other Daily Wire people, I believe... Ben Shapiro, no? I think Ben Shapiro, tried to be a screenwriter, tried to make it as an actor or something. Dave Rubin obviously tried to make it as a comedian. Jordan Peterson tried to make it as a psychologist, but that's different. Right. I'm not a psychologist, by the way. I'm a clinical social worker. People might get that confused sometimes. Anyways, so Michael Knowles comes from an acting theater background. He's definitely an ideologue, though, but he's he's got a lot of gusto. You can definitely tell that looking at him, but they all do. You have to have gusto, because that's the sort of medium by which you create an illusion that you are more than just a person, essentially. So he's more than such a person that he is now dueling 25 people in a battle of the wits. But yeah, Michael Knowles. So the reason I don't talk about him too much, and I don't do a lot of reacting to him, and the reason I don't pay attention to him much and follow what he's doing much, is because it's not funny in the same way that Dave Rubin is funny. Dave Rubin's got some, he will come out with stuff you're like, dude, whoa, what is wrong with your opinions? So I'm not trying to downplay it, but it feels like Michael Knowles is more so on that, and he's the guy you might remember coming out and certainly sounding like he was supporting the eradication of people of identities that he doesn't understand. So it just very gross. So I usually don't touch him with a 10-foot pole. But I'm going to dip my toes. Let's see how it goes. So that's a, fucking Jubilee video. You know what I mean? So, okay, let's check it out.
In terms of reality, I'm gay married. Ooh, right?
What is and you can tell he's got a sense of humor. There's this amazing moment in the PragerU video that I watched and did a video about. Should I pull it up? No, I won't pull it. I'll just tell you where he goes, okay, when he doesn't understand what someone's saying, and it's so funny. Like, he's just funny. Like I was just saying he's not funny, he's gross, but there is like what am I trying to say? He has a sense of humor. I think he's a little bit more aware of how he's acting than like Dave Rubin is, for instance. I think there's something there. Okay, let's
Point of this conversation
because you're not really married.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna outright call you a fascist.
Oh no.
And say
Oh,
that
heavens.
what
I believe he has called himself a fascist, but should I look that up? Oh no, that's the other one. Sorry, I'm not gonna look it up. But that's how he responds to being called a fascist, downplays the severity of it. But no, I was thinking of Matt Walsh, who has called himself a theocratic fascist for a while.
you're
Heaven
saying is
forfend.
hate speech.
I have XX chromosomes, Michael.
You have XX chromosomes.
Yeah, would you
Okay.
call me she, her now?
I don't. I'll
Oh, it looks like
I'll defer to you.
This could be a real learning moment for Michael. Let's see.
Hello, I'm Michael Knowles. I'm a conservative podcast host at the Daily Wire. I'm an author, and I'm a cigar salesman of Mayflower Cigars. And today,
Oh, the motherfucker just called himself a cigar salesman. Oh my god, and he called his cigar company Mayflower Cigars. Dude, you are hilarious. The face of someone who just called himself a cigar salesman. Look, it's fine to be a cigar salesman. That's fine. It's just like when you're a political commentator and it's like, oh, and you're also hawking a typically masculine product. Is that some form of overcompensation, or what is that doing for you, Michael? Exactly. Is it even making money? Like, I can't imagine that's the greatest, easiest business to turn a profit in, but maybe it's just a way to squeeze a little bit out of the audience, right? Can't be that big of an audience.
I am surrounded by 20 LGBTQ plus activists. My first claim is that there is no such thing as same-sex marriage.
Okay, so that is an interesting claim, right? Because he's saying that he like he does not believe that the legal system should recognize same-sex marriage as marriage. It almost feels like wordplay to be like, I just wouldn't call it a marriage. So it's like, okay, so you just don't live in the world where we call that marriage, I guess, or you think we should not let gay men. So that it's almost, what I'm trying to say is it's almost not the claim that you should. There's like underlying claims that are more necessary that stem from this one, but I'm sure they'll get to them. Let's see. And then people race to the middle, or they like raise their, they race. But then they're polite because they're nice people. You know what I mean? They're going to be polite to each
Nice to
other.
meet you,
How are
Michael.
you, sir? Nice to
I
see you.
am doing well. So your claim, what's the underlying philosophy of...
I feel like this guy kind of stole the chair. Let's see. Hold on. What? Whoa, there was a cut there. That was weird. It seems like the guy in pink gets to the chair first, and then there's a cut. Dude, what?
Wow.
What the hell happened during that cut? Michael's like acknowledging something. Did a producer like say no, let the other guy go? Like what? What is going on? Hold on. Okay, so he's clearly at least got a good shot for getting the chair. And then he's clearly reacting to some, it touches the chair first. And then someone probably explained it to him and that's why they cut it out. Okay. Still kind of a weird cut. Like, look, you're telling me he was not about to touch the chair first? Hold on. It's really hard to get it paused at the right point. He's clearly going to touch the chair first. Or he might have not realized that you have to touch it. Okay. Something happened with that. You know, I'm sorry to not analyze that one more deeply.
Nice to meet you,
How are
Michael.
you, sir? Nice to
I
see you.
am doing well. So your claim, what's the underlying philosophy of your claim?
Okay, thank you. Let's fucking go. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I guess the underlying historical
And
part of
great way to start a debate with someone. To put them on the defense immediately, and rather than saying even what you think, to ask them a question. Why not? If it helps you get to the heart of the issue, absolutely.
my claim is that everyone for all of history everywhere until, and I'm being generous, 2001, agreed with my view that there's no such thing as same-sex marriage. So it seems to me that marriage intrinsically requires sexual difference.
But marriage has meant something fundamentally different in societies as well, too. Like the institution of marriage as we practice it, as it exists, and what it means, and the consequences of it, and the constitution of it, and what it is different than what it has been in other societies. Like you could say marriage in the U.S., heterosexual marriage in the U.S. is different, like now than it was 50 years ago when women, had fewer rights to, I mean, in the workplace, but there's also there's constant changes in the rights of what it means to be married. So, and certainly when you compare one society to another, so it's almost arbitrary to draw the line at, I mean, it is arbitrary to draw the line at gender and the composition of it gender wise, since the composition can mean so many different things in so many different ways. Like, it's sort of identity politics in a negative way, I guess.
And furthermore, I think that any claim that marriage could be redefined to include same-sex marriage would render the term marriage incomprehensible.
Would you say that this is based off of natural law and how Thomas Aquinas defines natural law?
There's a good natural law argument for it, but I think it's based on more than that.
It's more than that.
Based on anthropology.
It's based on a feeling. It's based on this vibe I get. I was told it by people. I was told it by my dad, or I wasn't told it by my dad, and I wish I was, or something,
Then would you say that marriage is a set of legal rights, or is it a social role?
I think marriage is an institution. I think it's the fundamental political institution. I think, getting back to classical philosophy,
Of course.
that
Again, I saw a video of Michael Knowles talking about Plato's Eros, I believe. Yeah, it was about Eros, the Plato dialogue about love. It was Michael Knowles talking with Andrew Clavin, I believe, or Spencer Clavin, whichever one's the son. And Spencer Clavin knew all about Eros and I think speaks Greek and stuff. And Michael Knowles was I was just trying to remember something. Michael Knowles, he didn't know about it, but whatever. And so I think he's a total fake intellectual. Like, I mean, in my opinion, he doesn't seem to actually read books or seek knowledge in any genuine way. Because again, he is probably more motivated for him, the conclusion is the hypothesis. They're the same thing. He doesn't do the sort of scientific method of critical thinking. He starts at the conclusion and works backwards. But that being said, let's hear it, because this guy's kind of putting him to task a little bit. And so he asked him if it was a social or a legal thing, and he says political. So sort of not exactly answering the question, but it's helpful enough that I guess he's explaining what it means. Hopefully, do they have 15 minutes? How does this work?
man is fundamentally a social animal. So, I think at the bedrock of politics is the unit of the family. And, of course,
he's just saying a bunch of different things, but it's they're actually quite different if you think about it.
Intrinsic to the family is marriage.
But all of those, especially with natural law, is just an assertion without evidence to back that claim, in that we see marriage over time in various cultures has been different things.
In which cultures would you say you see same-sex marriage?
I did not say same-sex marriage particularly, but the role of it when it comes to family, when it comes to the conditions.
Right.
Because would you also say that if somebody is lawfully married...
you see so many different manifestations of marriage. I don't know. Maybe there has been same-sex marriage. You know what I mean? I don't know. And it's hard in a debate for someone... It's hard for you to know, without looking it up. Let me do research into that field really briefly. But yeah, let's say for the sake of argument that it's never been called marriage. There have obviously been it's worth asking Michael Knowles, do you acknowledge that same-sex relationships have existed in every society? Right? That would be such an interesting question, right? And good to ask right at the beginning, so you figure out, is he saying that gay people should be made to just push down their feelings. Who did he go to Yale with? There was this whole thing. Hold on. Michael Knowles at Yale Theater with, and then Google that. It was like another guy from like was it even like Spencer Clavin, or are they super different ages? Spencer Clavin? No. Yeah, was it? Yeah. Apparently, according to Wikipedia, he went. Yeah, that's what I talked about in my video. Yeah, him and Spencer Clavin. Yeah, they had an interesting dynamic. It was like it was good chemistry. But yeah, it would be good to ask Michael Knowles if gay people have always existed, or at least like pretty much every society probably have existed, right? People have been gay in pretty much every society. It even was it was like so different and so variable that our idea of what it means to be gay is in a lot of ways socially constructed by our current heteronormative situation. Obviously, they didn't have the exact same concept of gay. They had same-sex relationships in every society. Because how could you not? Are you telling me they either repressed it completely or people just never wanted to have same-sex relationships? What are the odds of that? I mean, I guess if you had like really small societies with like some sort of like that almost never changed or developed somehow, like maybe, sure. But like, okay, you want to make the claim that it's never been legally recognized as marriage. It's sort of like you're saying that even if that was true, like, would that be good? Like, you know what I mean? You're almost saying this larger claim of like everything that has happened is all that should happen. I almost feel.
Especially in the eyes of the church, they cannot be divorced and then married again.
Well, I oppose divorce and remarriage, but I'm making a more modest claim than that. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and I bet you he's never even publicly opposed that before. He just realized that his logic leads there, so he's like, oh yeah, I do have to agree to that.
That at its core, marriage necessarily involves two different sexes.
But how would you...
He's just saying the same thing with like words that are vague. The question is, why is it essential? Look, for anyone who's studied philosophy, there's such a thing as primary and secondary characteristics. I mean, look, it's been a while, but I'm pretty sure those still are talked about in philosophy. So why is it a primary characteristic of marriage that it is heterosexual? When you have I feel like it's safe to say the primary characteristics of marriage have never been static and fixed. And like, actually, I guess what I'm trying to get at with this other stuff is like Michael Knowles is kind of getting at a really interesting thing that I hope they touch on, which is like, he's almost saying in this broad abstract way that marriage is a institution of oppression of women by men. But he's like he doesn't realize, but it's almost like if you look at things in the way he does, well, why would we never open up the institution of marriage to same-sex couples? Why would the heterosexual relationship be the building block of the institutions of society? Like, why would... It's all about maintaining power of men. Like, unquestioned total power of men. And anything that disrupts this heterosexual cell of society in his mind is going to then disrupt the power of the man over the woman in that heterosexual relationship. It's almost like why jobs, this is a crazy analogy. It's almost why jobs don't want you to have universal health care. Like, big employers are not going to be supportive of universal health care often. I don't think. Because if that sort of environmental situation changes the relationship between employer and employee, and their ability to dominate their employees is furthered by the lack of options. I mean, really, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, it's so interesting. Like the more people that are gay, the more options people have. Like, it's so obvious that it's stupid to point out. But like, if I was bisexual, there's a lot more options. I don't think I can choose to be bisexual though. I don't know. I'm open to it. You know what I mean? If it happens, it happens. But you do just statistically. Now you could say no, you don't, because there's all these other factors that influence who someone's attracted to. So so that might not even be like, that might open up some doors, but it might be a person who has other things that they're picky about or stuff like that. So they they still have. I don't know. There's a lot of, but it is interesting because the more people are allowed to be just having relations with whoever they want, the more free they are. And the idea that he doesn't want someone to be able to remarry. Think about that in light of what I'm saying. Is that going to influence whether you leave your marriage? Is that going to influence whether you accept your husband's behavior towards you? If you feel like, well, I won't even be able to remarry? Interesting that his beliefs further his power. I wonder if that's reverse engineering your logic. Michael? By the way, I'm not trying to say that I think there's something wrong with people getting married. I think it's totally cool. And, it's just like an institution that has maybe a certain meaning historically. It doesn't mean you're participating in the oppression of women by getting married. And part of what makes it possible for marriage to not mean that is equality, marriage equality. I mean, it's that simple. You know what I mean? It makes marriage less of an oppressive institution to make it free to everyone, like to make it equal and open. Like anyone can do it. It's not just about men dominating women. We don't allow women, we don't have dowries or whatever. We don't we're trying to decommodify marriage, except for the wedding industry. Anyways, let's keep watching.
How would you prove that? Because all of natural law is just this assertion. I can just as easily say the opposite, in that marriage is a set of legal rights.
You keep bringing up natural law. I'm actually speaking even more basically.
Michael's like, I don't want to be saying something that you think is a thing that already exists. I want to be saying something totally different so that you can't necessarily grab a hold of it. It's not an argument that's coherent that you could point to.
Natural law, but I'm speaking even more basically than that. It seems to me that the only way that marriage could have a meaning is if it involves different sexes.
But once again, you're defining that meaning.
Try saying why, Michael, and then we'll get where we need to go, man.
But marriage essentially is a set of rights conferred from two spouses when it comes to inheritance, when it comes to the rights of the children, when it comes to a number of about 1,100 federal and state rights.
Okay, then what you're getting at is interesting and might help us move forward. How would you define marriage?
I would say marriage is a...
besides what he just said? Like, he just gave the definition of marriage. Were you listening? Was I not?
Set of rights,
sexes.
But once again, you're defining that meaning. But marriage essentially is a set of rights conferred from two spouses when it comes to inheritance, when it comes to the rights of the children, when it comes to a number of about 1,100 federal and state rights.
Okay, then what you're getting at is interesting and might help us move forward. How would you define marriage?
Michael, were you listening, dude? Like, I mean, he just said what it essentially is, like, after talking about your definition. Like, he was giving his definition.
I would say marriage is a legal contract between individuals when it comes to a set of property laws, when it comes to family law, when it comes to children, and many other rights that are conferred. And we do see that those rights have been conferred to members of the same sex. And so to say that same-sex marriage does not exist is not true because we see it.
Well, you say that marriage entails rights pertaining to children.
Okay, I'm sure he's going to make a great point. By the way, they're going to talk for 20 minutes total. I couldn't read the clock right before. 20 minutes. Wow, that's how this works? Damn, good.
Well, two men cannot create a child.
Dude, well, no one said anything about the two spouses being able to create a child. Did you notice how no one ever mentioned that before you responded to that?
But neither can infertile couples. And neither can, there are a number of couples that cannot have children.
Yeah, true.
Sure, so infertility sometimes occurs, and that's unfortunate.
And so does gay marriage.
Yeah.
Well, no, gay marriage cannot occur. I guess.
Michael, you just got dommed.
But you're asserting that without proof. We see that it does happen in that
No,
the
it
word
doesn't.
that we mean marriage.
You
and
could
the legal rights.
You could say that there's such a thing as a square ball. You
Okay, so Michael's saying, I'm trying to translate it. This is what he would say if he knew how to have like an argument. He would say, well, you're saying that the essential attributes of marriage are still present in a gay marriage, but the essential attributes are not. He would, that's what Michael is trying to say. That actually, and his example is a square ball, because that in that example, a square, it's incompatible, and a ball is inherently round. I mean, it's kind of not. I could imagine a square ball, and it would be a cube, but like if you played a game with it, it could be called the ball. I mean, and the fact that it's square wouldn't actually be that big of a problem. So, but he's trying to give an example of the idea of something where the essential attribute is no longer present. So I guess the question of what, like, on what authority and on what basis do you consider, and is it not just an argument by tradition or whatever it's called, to consider the heterosexuality an essential aspect of marriage? And the idea that it would be a good thing is sort of a separate point I hope they get to.
You could say that, but
But
a
you're
square ball
asserting that
doesn't
it's a
really exist.
contradiction. Would you agree that people have been lawfully...
Look at the way the woman behind rolls her eyes.
Say that, but a
you're
square ball
asserting that it's
doesn't
a
really exist.
contradiction. Would you agree that
That expression, she's like,
people have been lawfully wedded in the eyes of the government in those two
I
parties?
mean, this is honestly, for this guy, this is quite an easy argument. It's difficult because you're talking to Michael Knowles. He's an ideologue. But it is such a easy argument because you're like, no, it does exist. Like, that's why my first reaction was like, does Michael not live in reality? Because like it's almost like you can like point to gay marriage existing. Like, it's like, so he's essentially saying, I choose to live in a different reality, because like you can literally point to a marriage contract of gay people getting married. So what he's trying to say is, I believe gay marriage is illegitimate, and like that should be his claim if he was more intellectually honest with himself.
Are members of the same sex.
No, I'm saying that isn't possible. So laws can assert all
But you're
sorts of crazy
asserting that
things.
without
Well,
proof.
like the law could say that a black
But
person
we're talking about marriage. So like what the law says is actually really important.
isn't a human being. But that wouldn't
You know
be
what I mean? Like that's like what?
true. That wouldn't make it true.
But once again, when we get into this Aristotelian view of the world, that's an assertion. Would you agree?
You're bringing up Aristotle. I don't know. I'm not bringing up Aristotle.
Maybe because we're talking about like essential aspects of things. And if you ever studied philosophy, you would understand that you are having a philosophical conversation about the essential nature of a thing. This is like a very, you could hear this type of thing in a Socratic dialogue. It's that they wouldn't debate about this. They just have sex with the same sex people and be, not debate it. Obviously. They had different standards around same-sex relationships. They had a different understanding of what it was. It meant a different thing. I'm not an expert. I'm not going to speculate. But I know it was quite different than how we have it in ancient Greece. But also, it's funny that Michael is bothered because he knows that he can't roll with it, and he knows that he's supposed to. He has a cigar brand. He's supposed to like know something about Aristotle. He's like, not that it's like the most masculine thing to know about Aristotle, but like sort of to his audience, he knows it's a bunch of dudes. He's supposed to know something about Aristotle. They want him to, he's got gelled hair. They want him to know something about Aristotle. You know what I mean? But he's annoyed at bringing up Aristotle. And it's just illuminative of the fact that he does not actually realize he's having a conversation about essential characteristics. And that's why he keeps saying other things and veering off track.
What would you say
I like Aristotle.
that-
I mean, okay, whatever. He's somewhat on track, I should say.
Aristotle, Thomas Aquinas, in the traditional view of the magisterium of the Catholic
He's
Church.
like smiling, Michael. Like he's like,
I like Aristotle.
That Aristotle,
wait,
Thomas
what?
assertion. Would you agree?
You're bringing up Aristotle. I don't know. I'm not bringing up Aristotle.
What would you say
I like Aristotle.
that Aristotle?
Though I like Aristotle.
Thomas Aquinas, in the traditional view of the magisterium of the Catholic Church, are a view that you use to base your worldview off of.
I am Catholic, but marriage actually even predates the church. So I guess my view is your definition of marriage seems to get a little muddled. You say it's a legal arrangement of family, but to say
I don't know the origins of marriage. I'm not going to pretend I actually don't know how, like, when exactly marriage started. I mean, we could sort of look it up, but I think, didn't they say they have a fact-checking thing? When did marriage start? 2350 BC in Mesopotamia, according to the AI or whatever. 2350 in Mesopotamia. Over the next 100 years, marriage evolved into a widespread institution embraced by the ancient Hebrews, Greeks, and Romans. The first evidence recorded of marriage ceremonies uniting one woman and one man dates from about 2350. Cool. That's awesome. So we've been doing it for like 4,000 years, you know, and that's great. I think things sometimes can change over 4,000 years, and I think that's I'm personally okay with things changing every 3,000 or 4,000 years, but I guess, you know, that makes me yeah, I don't know, man. Like, this is like life, dude. Like, he just makes too much money doing this stuff, so, you know.
that marriage is a legal arrangement pertaining to family is circular. Of course, it's
I
a legal
wonder if
arrangement.
he's always been having these views, like when he was in his theater classes and stuff. I wonder how that went down, or if he totally didn't have these views.
Pertaining
I'm
to
saying
family.
it's
saying
a
what is
legal
it?
arrangement.
When you say it's an arrangement that pertains to children, you say, well, okay, now we're getting closer because only a man and a woman can produce a child.
Michael, but same-sex couples can rear children, which is dope, and, you know, they do a great job at it. You know what I mean? So
In principle. Now, of course, some couples are infertile, but just because, you know, a human being, let's say, loses an arm doesn't.
okay, so fertility is not an essential aspect of marriage, correct? Right. So you didn't say most marriages are heterosexual. You said there is no such thing as same-sex marriage. So if, you know, it's just worth then asking, like, does he even know what he's talking about? Because then the question is, if fertility is sometimes not essential to marriage, on what basis? Which, by the way, no one mentioned fertility. I think the other guy said often involving children, because obviously couples like to. It's what's it called? Social reproduction or something. There's a whole thing. You know, I don't know. But yeah, people want to have kids. A lot of people want to have kids. I believe that's probably one of the most common things that bring us all together, actually, as humans. And some people don't. I don't really particularly care about having kids. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But it is very common that people like having kids. You know what I mean? That is something I've noticed. So according to my calculations, a lot of people do want to have kids. And I believe that that is a human right, that everyone should have the right to have kids. And that no one should be limited in how many kids they have. And yeah, I mean, obviously people will have more kids when they feel like good about bringing lives into this world more. But yeah, anyways, so yeah, it's obviously no one said anything about fertility, and your point about fertility proves you wrong, because you're showing that thing you just said, another thing you just said that is an essential aspect of marriage is also not. So it makes us think maybe the other things you're saying are essential to marriage are also not. And there are a lot of exceptions. And now you're saying some exceptions are different than other exceptions, but probably not giving a reason.
Doesn't mean that human beings only have one arm or
But
might
you're
have
saying that
three
it's a
arms. We're discussing what
necessary
what
But
component.
human beings can have one arm, just like marriages can be same sex.
And that necessary component doesn't come from anywhere.
No. Well, I'll give you my definition of marriage.
Absolutely.
I think marriage is a lifelong union between a man and a woman ordered toward the procreation and education of children, and as a secondary matter for the mutual support of the spouses.
Okay, well, it seems like he's saying fertility is an inherent part of marriage when he says that, if he says ordered towards procreation. But if you accept same-sex couples raising children as procreation in some, you know, in a slightly different way, which I'm sure he doesn't. So, I mean, yeah, he almost didn't say anything about the legal institution of marriage. He didn't say anything about it. And he didn't even say anything necessarily about it being political. And I like that he emphasizes secondarily it's about the people getting married. It's mostly about the offspring, and secondarily it's about the two people having fulfillment from the experience. Secondarily. So is he married? I have to look it up. Oh, let's just go back to Wikipedia. It doesn't. So yeah, he's married. He was married 7 years ago and apparently has 3 children according to Wikipedia. So hope his relationship is good. Secondarily to the 3 children.
Once again, when we say ordered towards, is to look at the world with these preconceived notions about things.
I'm not preconceiving anything. I'm just observing
Certain
nature as it is. No, I'm just observing nature, and I'm saying that that's what marriage.
But you're not. I mean, so he's not talking about natural law, but he is talking about nature.
Marriage is
But if we're observing nature, we see that there are same-sex couples. So if we go, we are observing.
No,
things.
I'm not saying there can't be same-sex couples.
Okay. You just want them to not have the right to have the same. It's okay. You can tell his whole thing hinges on him not talking about marriage as a legal institution and a social historical institution that has manifested legally. If he can't acknowledge that, because then that destroys his argument, because that exposes all the different ways it has manifested, basically, because that is and he's being vague. He called it a union. That is vague. What are you talking about? So yeah, okay, relationships exist.
I'm just saying there can't be same-sex marriage.
Are there same-sex individuals that have entered into a legal contract that the state recognizes as a marriage?
Sometimes the state gets things wrong.
Okay, so his real claim is I have a different definition of marriage than the state.
As I am arguing,
But is that a yes? Is that a yes? That there are couples of the
Yeah, that's a yes, bro. He's getting
same sex that have been wedded in the eyes of the state.
Since 2015, the U.S. government pretends that 2 men can be married to each other.
But you're basing off of that nothing. You're basing that.
a lot of governments, actually. To blame it on the federal government is funny. That's a odd thing to do. Because a lot of states also independently recognize it.
Off of nothing.
No, I'm basing it off of the Obergefell decision from the Supreme Court. They're pretending. They're acting as if 2 men can marry
According
each other.
to you?
No, according to the Supreme Court and the Obergefell decision.
He misunderstood the question just there. The according to you was in reference to his claim that this is a pretense. And then he thinks he's asking according to who, as in who did the pretense. It's like you're not following your own conversation.
Using pretend as if things exist outside of the institutions that we make.
I'm just saying the word has a meaning, and I gave you a very clear
Right.
definition.
When you call marriage an institution, you are recognizing it as a legal institution, and you're understanding it's instituted. It's been instituted in many different ways within our own country in the last 100 years. Women didn't have the same rights 100 years ago in marriage. Women, I mean, I wish I knew more about marriage so I didn't have to go to such a harsh example. But one thing that comes to mind for me is trigger warning about serious subject. You can fast forward 30 seconds if you want. But you were not legally able to be held accountable as a man in the U.S. for sexually assaulting your wife until the 70s, I believe. And it got changed in the laws of each state, one at a time. And it was, I think, or something like that. And so that, yeah, they recognize you can still commit assault whether or not you're married. You know what I mean? And it's to the depths of how fucked up that is. It's just next level. It really is. But anyways, well, that's just a great example of marriage meaning something different. That's just one really potent example of how the institution can be different just when the laws are changed as they are. I don't even know where you read about what it means to get married. Do people look that up before they get married, or they're like, what am I actually signing up for? It's what does this mean? Legally speaking, what are all the rights that change for me? I mean, it's a ton.
definition of what I think it means and what statistically everyone for all of human history everywhere has thought it means. And you've given me this kind of jumbled description that keeps...
But the idea that you're supposed to make your decisions based on what everyone in history has done is actually not logical. That's not a solid argument. I know that might seem strange to maybe some folks, but like, that is not an argument, because you could just as well say, no, we should do things based on what is best for the future, actually. Not based on what happened in the past. We should say what's best for the future and what should we do. And so I'm not even necessarily saying you need to agree, but like, what my argument is just as true as his, and that's why his argument is not a good argument. You need to base it on something else, which is to say, what is the nature of marriage, which they've been trying to talk about. And then why is X an essential characteristic, and why is Y an essential characteristic?
Contradicting itself. And that's my whole point, is I think it is not possible to define marriage. I have nothing against
According
two fellas.
to who?
He thinks it's not possible to define marriage?
According to who?
Prove me wrong.
Prove you wrong.
He just defined... You're asking him to define marriage again, dude?
Once again, are there couples in the U.S. that have entered into a covenant that society views as marriage?
Well, some people in society view it as marriage, but many do not.
But you aren't the ones conferring rights to...
Right, because he's like, society doesn't exist, Margaret Thatcher, or like Ayn Rand, I forget.
Right, but I don't think that the government dictates reality. I think that if the government came...
No, but marriage is a institution, right? Not a reality-stitution?
passed a law and said that human beings are people with 3 heads and 17 arms and octopus tentacles, and so we decree the U.S. government, that wouldn't make it true.
But who defines marriage?
It would if we lived in a world where that's how people were defined, I guess. Because the point is that marriage is a institution that has always existed within political. Michael called it political earlier. Political organizations, and I mean, so then as those change and as context change, he hasn't addressed the key point, which is that marriage has meant many different things in different places. So what do these flags mean? What gives you the right to, say that X is and I'm just saying X for shorthand, that heterosexuality is, and I say X for shorthand because really his argument fails regardless of what he's just trying to stretch it to this particular subject.
Pause. You've been voted out by the majority.
Nice one.
A pleasure to meet you.
Oh, they get a majority of flags to change him out, and then after 20 minutes they go to a different question. Way better idea. Yeah, Jubilee's not stupid enough to let one person talk for 20 minutes. Yeah. Oh, come on. Let the guy in pink sit down. He was so
Hey, good to
close
meet you,
last
Mindy.
time.
Mindy, nice to
Yeah.
meet you.
Yeah. Oh, my name's Mason, but
Mason.
Good to meet you. Yeah.
I'm Michael.
Oh, gotcha. Wait, do you have a birth certificate?
Not on me, but I do have one.
Okay. Well, I can't confirm that your name's Michael until I see that birth certificate, just as a defender of objective truth. But
Oh.
we can go more into the prompts,
Well,
speaking about me.
That is such a fucking good point. An extremely strong point to make that I'm sure was planned in advance and is so good. That is like such a good point to make. And Michael seems a little rattled.
Could actually, if you have
Oh, yeah?
faculties of reason and you say, well, this is the sort of fellow who presents himself, in a
really?
credible...
Oh, Michael is digging himself a hole. And I'm sure does he not even realize? What if he doesn't even, he might not realize the point that's being made yet.
way, and you've probably
Oh my God, he actually might not.
checked with the producers here. They've probably verified that I am who I am. So
Yeah.
a reasonable
are you
person
saying
would
that
be able to
gender
know
is
who
something
I
that
am.
is more performative characteristics? Is that what you're implying? Is that I'm able, with my faculty of reason, to assume that I'm speaking with the man in front of me? And therefore I can just politely go with the name that you're presenting to me, almost as an act of respect?
No, I just think that I wouldn't have gotten in this building if I weren't really who I say I am. So,
Michael, are you stupid? Like, or are you, like, because you're just completely missing the question.
Okay. Gotcha.
that would be my deduction.
We'll bring it back to the prompt, going back to...
Oh my God, I don't know if he even understands that, like, the implications of what he, like, does he even get the analogy?
Specifically same-sex
He seems like he doesn't.
marriage. You said you argued from an anthropology? That's like your basis of...
Yeah, men and
reason
women
for
are
this?
different, and marriage involves one of each. Yeah.
What specific culture are you referring to? Because we have so many...
Thank you. Okay, this guy knows what's up. Thank you.
cultures that have communal relationships in which people are raised. When you said in the act of procreation, have you ever heard of it takes a village to raise kids?
But
That's not something that's just a saying.
No,
I didn't say happens literally in specific cultures.
No. But when I say procreation, that's the act of creating the child, and usually there aren't 3 or 4 people involved in that.
But A, there could be, and B, are you literally just saying that marriage and procreation, like marriage and procreation, have some essential connection, Michael? Really? So a marriage is not legitimate if, and he already just backed off when he was asked. A marriage is legitimate even if, there's no procreation. So, but that's just a different exception that he is somehow different in his mind because it doesn't affect his power. Yeah, I knew I'd enjoy watching this because I would never watch like a bit of Michael's show. It's just boring, scripted and stuff. But seeing him get challenged is useful.
It's usually 2 people.
Yeah, but even those people that do create the child oftentimes were referred to as different genders depending on the culture that it is that you're observing.
Which cultures are you referring to?
We could talk about the Mayans. We could talk about certain Amazonian cultures. I recognize that they're not Western cultures, so you might not prioritize them, but that doesn't mean that they don't exist.
What was their... Well, they no longer exist, the Mayans.
Oh, right, because of colonial...
Wow. That's very dark, Michael. And they quite do. I mean, I'm sure there are some descendants. And like to just say that and laugh. Yeah, of course they exist. Yeah, there's plenty of Maya people still existing. What are you talking about? Amazonian people? Do they exist? I mean, obviously people live in the Amazon. I don't know who he's talking about when he says Amazonian. There's certainly still indigenous people of the Amazon rainforest, but I don't know if that's what Amazonian means, honestly. I feel like it refers to like something else, right? Yeah, I don't know what it means actually. But obviously, people still live in the Amazon rainforest, which we should try to preserve. When I was like a teenager, I read a book about the Amazon rainforest and the one of the pygmy tribes that lives in the Amazon rainforest, I think. You know what? I can't remember. I read 2 books about different rainforests. One about a rainforest in the Congo. And I forget which one was which sometimes. But they were both so impactful. And I was like, it's just a completely different way of life. Mostly the like nomadic thing was crazy. Like not nomadic, it's actually different because they're just like always on the move. Like maybe stay a week somewhere or something, or less, or it's just interesting, So people. So anyways, Michael, these people do exist, and it's strange that you laughed about that.
I'm glad that you're just.
But what was their view of gender? What specifically are you referring to?
That's specifically a social characteristic that we're all performing in right now. I mean, you can't say.
No, I'm not asking your opinion. I'm asking what you brought up. The Mayans. What did the Mayans think?
That's just something that is.
But what did the Mayans think? You brought it up. You seem so confident about this.
Yeah, Michael's not used to talking to someone who actually can answer that question and just knows what it's like about another culture. He just knows the word anthropology.
What did the Mayans think about marriage and gender?
We can talk about difference in the way that they are recognized.
Can we? I don't know that you know the difference. You said there was a difference, but you haven't explained how there was a difference. And I think this is what people do.
Okay, dude, like, here's a key point of debate, though. And if you're good faith, you would recognize this. Like, just because your debate opponent doesn't know the specific details of a subject, for example, the specific way that marriage is structured in the Mayan society, and the way that gender works in Mayan society, doesn't make you correct about that subject. And if you are intellectually honest, you will not try to make a point about your opponent not knowing something if you also don't know it. Because you should instead respond to, let's stipulate that that's true and gender work differently in the Mayan society. What would you think of that, Michael? If you were intellectually honest, is how it would work. This is the only reason I'm streaming this, really. I mean, I do enjoy it. It's entertaining, but I do find it a useful way to elaborate ideas related to reasoning that I find very important to mental health and to life.
Wait, is this prompt specifically on the Mayan anthropology?
Okay, I'm trying to drill down when you say there are different understandings of marriage throughout history and time and space. I say, okay, maybe that's possible.
That was such a slap in the face. That was amazing.
How? Tell me. Point to the examples. And you said, well, the Mayans. And I said, okay, well, what did the Mayans think about marriage? And you don't have an answer. And none of these people have answers.
Have you ever Googled it? What did the Mayans do with marriage? Okay, that's sort of vague. I feel so stupid. And gender, like, how did, you know what I mean? Like, men and women had different roles in society, but their relationship was complex and complementary. Divorce and remarriage were simple. Okay, so that's one thing that, okay, well, that's not essential, so why would you have that as your view? I'm just going by the Google AI, by the way. It sources things. Okay, what is it? What's this source? Women were associated with religious rituals and beliefs such as the moon. Mayan households were the basic unit of social organization, economic production. Extended family members often lived together in multi-generational dwellings. Property was typically passed down through the male line. Women could inherit property in some cases. So it's actually not super different off the top, but there are matriarchal societies. Like, Michael knows that, right? Has he ever talked to someone who knew about a matriarchal society? The bride and groom had to be from the same social class in town, but could not have the same last name. Yeah, you got to be careful about that. Okay. I don't know, who knows if the Mayans were, like, it's like, the point is, Michael, and like, it's, if he was smart and honest and intellectually honest and present here, he would be like, okay, so they're making the point that marriage has differed. And so what gives me the right to say that this is an essential characteristic? But if he acknowledged that, then he would have to not give a good answer to it.
Because everyone has... Do you have an answer?
People can look up right now. If you're right near a Google, yeah, exactly. Right. Michael's trying to hone me down on trivia night right now.
No, I'm just
right
asking
now,
you to explain.
Trying to talk about specifically our examples. I'm asking
you to explain the point that you brought up. And so what people usually do is they say,
no, you're misunderstanding the point by thinking it's really specific, Michael. It's not about the specific Mayans. Just stipulate, for the sake of argument, that Mayans had a different type of marriage structure than we have, which they did. Even if their gender roles, who knows what their gender roles were. Gender roles have differed in different societies. Respond to that claim, Michael.
Say, well, look, I'm sure that there were all different types of marriage throughout history.
Look, if you have a strong position in an argument, you should steelman your opponent's arguments constantly. You should constantly be calmly interpreting their arguments in the most charitable light, stipulating as much as you can while still proving your point.
All over the world. And what I'm telling you is, there actually hasn't been.
So you're telling me that a Catholic priest are the people who created like a certain ceremony within the Mayan culture? Is that what you're telling me?
I'm not telling you that. I'm telling you that if you want to listen, I'm happy to tell you exactly my point.
I'm listening. Ears are open, Michael.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mindy.
For all of history, for all of history, everywhere in the world, until roughly 2001 in the Netherlands, every single culture, every polity has believed that marriage is the union of a man and a woman, ordered toward the...
Okay. I mean, I don't know if that's true, but even just like stipulating that, because that's a factual argument. I would have to do some extensive research. I don't know. But again, stipulating that that's true, why does that make that good? Because it has been the case. Accepting that marriage is an institution that has not always existed. And it's a legal institution that has differed enormously in different places.
Procreation of children.
And
that's what it has always been.
You're saying that's the specific objective of what marriage is?
Yeah, that's what
for thousands of years, marriage has been used for property transfer.
Yeah.
That's what marriage
is also. It's also
yeah, honestly, that's true. It's more about property transfer than, but children there's a big overlap between children and property transfer. You know what I mean?
for the mutual support of the spouses, but it is in principle ordered toward the procreation of children. That's what distinguishes it from
So
other kinds of
it's not the goal of it, it's just the principle of it. Michael, that's like not what a principle is.
relationships. So I
Would you
think
say that there's an aspect where love is important, that's specifically within this current culture? Would you say that you love your wife?
I do, but now
Okay, well, that always hasn't been the case, specifically when it comes to things like
there are
arranged
Yeah.
people
marriages.
today who don't love.
No, but Michael, like, love was like, there are people today who don't love their spouses, but they like usually do at the beginning at least, and not always. There are certainly arranged marriages in different types of situations, but historically, as again, if you're able to steel man your opponent's arguments, historically, love has not been nearly as much of a factor in relationships. Like 500 years ago, big difference in terms of how the percentage of people marrying because they were in love. Nah. That was just a nice plus if you could feel some love towards the person in a lot of cases, and especially if you're a woman, because women were literally treated as property, and girls in a lot of cases were treated as property, and still are today in a lot of cases. Treated as property. And the logical extension of Michael's beliefs are treating anyone who's not a man as property, or worse.
Their wives.
That's absolutely true.
I suppose the difference here,
as I just mentioned, that love has not always been something that's recognized, and even in some couples
we love
right now,
we love people in relationships that are marital and in relationships that are not marital. We sometimes don't love our spouses. We sometimes
These are slightly different points, Michael. You're slightly missing it.
don't love people who are not our
I
spouses.
think the point of what this conversation is,
that-
Michael, is we're seeing different motivations in which people actually get married.
But I'm not
And so
asking about
it doesn't have to be
motivations.
specifically for the procreation. It doesn't have to be specifically for property transfer. And in some instances, it can just be the union of people who care about each other.
Okay,
and that's the
but I-
fixation and the obsession
I care
of
about-
same-sex couples.
I care about
is
my-
just what's so weird, specifically when conservatives claim to be big, strong men. You know, cigar salesmen that are out there presenting this certain image. It's weird how you're focusing more on gay people than oftentimes gay people focus on gay people.
I'm not
That's so true.
focusing on anything. I'm not the one who changed the definition
You
of marriage.
came in here making the claim, hey,
That is what's called a tautology, because it's only true if the premise is true. I don't think he knows the difference between a premise and a conclusion.
these marriages that I'm seeing are not legitimate.
No, I'm saying they're not
because it hurts
marriage.
my feelings.
No, because that's just not what marriage is. Like if you told me that there was such a thing as a square ball.
The ball that we're referring to is a yellow ball and a green ball. It doesn't mean that the ball is square.
Yeah,
now we're-
exactly. It's not an essential characteristic that's changing.
I think we're confusing our analogies.
No, Michael, you just literally don't, like, you're actually a little bit not up to par here, man. Like, you're not getting the point, right? Like, you're missing the point that the analogy is about representing whether a characteristic is essential or not. And it's strange that you can't just talk in philosophical terms, like a little.
The reason one can't have a square ball is not because one has an animus against square balls. It's because it's in the nature of spheres and squares.
Yes, that's the claim. Now make an argument for it. Why?
That one cannot simultaneously be both.
The fear isn't seeing a gay marriage and saying, oh, boo, oh my God, I got scared. The fear is, oh my God, my rights are being taken away, or the institution of marriage is degraded,
Yeah, he's trying to have a more productive conversation.
specifically because we're expanding it to people who also love each other.
It's because even in principle, two fellas can't make a baby. That's the difference.
So he's So he's saying procreation is an essential. The ability to procreate is an essential aspect of marriage, which he didn't defend before. He had to admit there were exceptions.
We mentioned there are people that are infertile that you wouldn't say their marriage is any less legitimate, specifically because they can't.
In principle, their marriage
Okay, so he doesn't know what the word principle means.
is inclined toward the procreation of children.
That's not true, because
It
we
is.
just talked about there were
It's
certain instances
definitely
where marriage
not.
is used as a property transfer. It's not for procreation.
But again, it's
What about
also
King Henry VIII? Would
it's
you
also
say that
used
any
for
of his marriages were illegitimate?
I
had a lot of trouble having
because
kids.
I'm a Catholic, but that's a separate
Oh,
issue.
gotcha.
Is that a joke? Who are they talking about?
But again, it's
What
also
about King Henry VIII? Would you say that
used
any
for
of
King
his
Henry
marriages
VIII.
were illegitimate?
I
had a lot of trouble having
would because
kids.
I'm a Catholic, but that's a separate
Oh,
issue.
gotcha.
This is the issue. I love my buddy, right? I love my Aunt Gertrude. I love my cousins, but I'm not married to them.
Oh my god, dude! Like, It's so annoying that they can't just stick to the point about the nature and the essential characteristics, because all this other stuff is missing the point.
have lived with roommates. I wasn't married
But
to
it
them.
allows Michael to sort of demonstrate his like regressiveness.
Many people have slept with people who are not their spouses. That doesn't mean they're married to them. Marriage has to have a definition
Okay, now we're just talking about different inessential characteristics.
that is different from all of these other kinds of relationships. And the only one that anyone throughout all of history until roughly 2001 in the Netherlands has ever come up with is that it's a union of a man and a woman inclined toward the procreation of children. And also it so happens that
I hope Jubilee doesn't move those like cuts like time-wise. I hope they're perfectly sequenced with how they actually reacted to things. They better be. That would be so messed up.
children
This is
are
a
raised in a
specific-
much better way
This is a specific,
from a man and a woman,
This is a
not
specific
from two men.
motivation that you continue to reiterate and parrot. That is just not true if you look at various examples. Good to meet you, Mindy.
Good to meet you. What was his name? I didn't catch it.
Mason was his name. Mindy.
That was easy. You got it.
How's it going?
Good. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay. So I am not in this politics world. To be honest, all I know about you is your name is Michael and you don't marry your cousins.
I
which
don't.
Is, which is
I
great.
don't. I avoid
Okay.
that.
So I was taking some notes here.
I don't know. I don't, is that a reference to the King Henry VIII thing? I don't know.
My handy dandy notebook.
Okay.
You're making a lot of appeals to things, you know, appeal to nature, appeal to the dictionary, appeal to the past.
Philosophy.
Yeah.
Anthropology.
I feel like what you're ultimately appealing to
He's
is
not appealing to anthropology. And anthropology is arguably like, I think, has he ever spoken to like, he probably has like one or two anthropologists he's heard of who agree with him, but like, I don't know if the average anthropologist would agree with him. You know what I mean? So to claim the field is a little audacious.
is Michael's idea of marriage. And that's fine, right? But we
Well,
live-
I'm appealing to everyone else's idea of marriage for all of history.
But not now. I mean, this is not what people think now.
well, so here's the thing. Haven't there before I don't get sidetracked here, but briefly to respond to that, weren't there other ideas in the past that were bad?
Well, there are plenty of ideas in the past that have been bad and discarded. There are very few ideas that have existed everywhere for all of history.
It's not all of history, dude. It's 4,000 years. Human beings have been around 1 million years, like ish.
Continue to exist today, albeit in a
All of history, dude. What is your... Are you kidding me?
ideas that have existed everywhere for all of history.
And has not existed everywhere in the same fashion is the whole point, dude. He's like not the sharpest tack.
And continue to exist today, albeit in a slightly different form, that are bad,
So
right?
but like why am I supposed to care that people have believed something for a long time?
Okay,
Well,
good.
because
This is a very helpful format for getting to the point, and these people are very level-headed, very well prepared, like mentally. I don't know.
often things that have endured forever everywhere do so because they work or they have
Dude, he just literally thinks 4,000 years is all of human history, dude. It's not, man. It's like all of written history, dude. It's anthropologists study stuff way older than 4,000 years.
tethering to reality.
But
in this case,
in terms of reality, I'm glad you mentioned the word reality because in terms of reality, I'm gay married. Ooh, right? Like we live in a society where if you look at polling data, society sees
We do live in a society. Okay, good. This is helpful. 69, nice, % of Americans support same-sex marriage. So, boom. But Michael Knowles, I'm quite sure, is not a fan of democracy.
to be okay with gay marriage. And so if you personally
Because he believes he knows better than other people. Fundamentally, there's a lack of empathy, would be my guess.
don't want to get gay married, you don't have to. But shouldn't we? I mean, I'm thinking like, what is the point of this conversation?
because you're not really married. You have a relationship
So
with a man,
I understand
but you're not
that-
really married.
I understand that you think
People
that.
who react in shock, it's just maybe they've not really watched Michael. He just like, he's a sad little boy who wants attention. So he just says stuff like this.
And that's fine. But we should structure because what's the point of this
You know,
conversation?
he said some bizarre and really just strangely personal and inappropriate comments about Greta Thunberg, the young climate change activist who's had more success and positive influence than Michael could ever dream of in 10 or 20 lifetimes. He made some weird comments about her, and I think it led to him getting fired from Fox, if I'm not mistaken. He made this soft landing on the pretty harmful reactionary platform of the Daily Wire, but he's not super skilled, not very sharp, doesn't really have much else he can offer but shocking statements.
Right? Like I was kind of falling asleep through all like the Plato and Socrates and Italy.
I didn't bring it up. That was the other guy. That wasn't me.
I know. And we'll agree on that, okay? There's the agreement for the thumbnail, all right? But like
The point of this conversation
I can make it
should
very
be
practical for you.
that we're deciding how we should conduct ourselves,
Yes,
right?
I can make it very practical for you. Children do very poorly when they are raised by two men or by two women.
Okay, well, that's way more helpful of a claim than there's no such thing as same-sex marriage, because that is demonstrably false. And, like, I don't know if he's found a study that agrees with him, but, like, that's not true. Definitely not true. Children do not do better in heterosexual relationships, raising them. Absolutely not.
Relative
My
to men and women.
understanding of the literature on this is that that's not true.
What literature are you referring to?
Let's see if they fact check it. I don't know.
Unfortunately, I was not able to bring notes here. If you look it up after,
I don't have notes either, but I'll tell you.
You can reach out to me after. I can email it
but
to you.
I can-
we're getting off of my point here, and I don't like it.
I
So I'm
think-
going to keep.
Okay, hold on. So you go to Google Scholar, okay? Go to Google Scholar, and you type in same-sex relationships, children outcomes. And here we go. Child health outcomes, is that good? A meta-analysis of okay, here we go. 2008, but whatever. Let's see, hold on, a meta-analysis of developmental outcomes of children of same-sex and heterosexual parents. Hold on. Just getting this article best I can. Let's see how this goes. Put in the link. Got it. Pull it up. Throw it down. All right, let's pull this up. A meta-analysis of developmental outcomes of children of same-sex and heterosexual parents, published 2008. Let's just read the abstract first. While there has been a recent upsurge in the number of studies related to children raised by gay and lesbian parents, the literature in this area continues to be small and wrought with limitations. This was in 2008. This study presents a meta-analysis of the existing research and focuses on the developmental outcomes. So you want to choose a meta-analysis sometimes. It's a good summary of other studies. Among children raised by gay and lesbian, a total of 19 studies were used for the analysis and included both child and parent outcome measures addressing 6 areas. Analyses revealed statistically significant effect size differences between groups for one of the 6 outcomes, parent-child relationship. Results confirm previous studies in this current body of literature suggesting that children raised by same-sex parents fare equally well to children raised by heterosexual parents. The authors discuss... Okay, so what was this one thing they said? Okay, and there were statistically significant effect size differences between groups for one of the 6 outcomes. Parent-child relationship. Okay. Trying to understand exactly what they mean by that. But then they say that... children raised by same-sex parents fare equally well. So this is 19 studies that they looked at. And then you zoom, if you don't have a lot of time, you zoom forward to the discussion at the end. And they show you the whole method. Okay. This study sought to examine possible associations. Let's just see. Does a child's developmental well-being or quality of parent-child relationship vary? Okay, so... results of this study confirmed previous findings regarding associations between parent sexual orientation and child developmental outcomes, namely that parent sexual orientation was not a salient predictor for children's development. However, because there were significant differences between groups on the outcome of parent-child relationship, it was necessary to account for possible moderators in the relationship between parent sexual orientation and developmental outcomes. Thus, for the second question addressed in the study, we found that the perspective of the data moderated the relationship between parent sexual orientation and the quality of parent-child relationship. Okay, so they're saying there was a lot of variation in the studies that they studied in relation to how they look, the results they got for the effects of the relationship between same-sex and the parent-child relationship. So presumably they're saying some studies found that same-sex couples had negatively impacted parent-child relationships, I guess, is what they're saying, but they're not really coming out and saying it. In some, children raised by same-sex and heterosexual parents were found to not differ significantly in terms of their cognitive development, gender role behavior, gender identity, psychological adjustment, or sexual preferences. For the outcome that was significantly different between the children of same-sex and heterosexual parents, the finding was in favor of same-sex parents. Oh. Oh no, it's positive. For the outcome of parent-child relationships, same-sex parents reported having significantly better relationships with their children than did heterosexual. I thought they had found some negative thing and were couching it in this way. No, they're just it's positive. Oh, I thought they were just being super delicate about saying there were a few studies who found negative things about same-sex relationships, because studies find different things. You have to look at a bunch of studies. But no, they are saying that similar findings have been documented in previous studies with children of lesbian parents expressing more positive relationships with their mother's new partner than children of heterosexual mothers' families. Yeah, and it's interesting. That's fascinating. That's fascinating that the role of the male in the family means something different that can negatively impact a child's ability to accept the mother's new partner compared to a homosexual relationship. Wow. So let's just stop there. The main point is that it's not a particularly salient factor, whether it's same-sex or heterosexual. So we just looked at one meta-analysis of 19 studies from 2008. That's all. That doesn't mean you have to agree with it. We just looked at it.
Talking now.
I think it's
so.
You want it to be practical, and you want to avoid.
We're just
going
to talk over each other. No one's going to understand anything.
We don't need to
so
talk
much more than me. You're the hero. Let me talk. Come on, Michael. Let me talk. So,
if you want to,
yeah, you can shut him up if you tell him he's the hero.
Avoid the point I'm making, which probably is good for your side of the argument.
Okay, that was synced up, the camera cuts, so they definitely sync up the cutaways.
If you want to avoid the point I'm making, which probably is good for your side of the argument.
Okay, if it's good for me, I'm going to do it. So, the point of this conversation is we're deciding ultimately, what should our laws be, right? If we live in a plutocratic society where a lot of people have
shouldn't be plutocratic. You mean pluralistic?
Oh, he does mean pluralistic, actually. Yeah.
Pluralistic, thank you. See,
but we also do live in a plutocratic society.
I'm not a media guy. I'm just a guy. Why am I here? He's a professional. Pluralistic. Thank you, Michael. So we live in a pluralistic society.
Yeah.
And
that's a great way to endear yourself to someone too in a debate. That's actually, if that was intelligent, that would be if that was intentional, that would be the smartest thing ever.
We should have our laws allow people to live the way they want insofar
right.
as...
This is a good way to reframe it, because this is completely true and a very helpful way to look at it, because you are literally pointing out he is against freedom.
We're not impeding on other people's liberties or harming others, right? To my understanding,
so what about the right of a kid to have his natural mother and father? Because when the rubber meets the road in gay...
Yeah, dude, that is the expression we all have too, because what Michael's saying right now makes no sense.
Marriage. Right. It's not just two people living together. You could always do that. It's not two people doing those things you guys do that you could always do that. It's the ability to adopt children, and in some cases acquire children by going to the baby store and purchasing the eggs of one woman.
This happens in heterosexual relationships too, man.
Renting the womb of another woman and raising children, depriving them intentionally of their natural mothers, and that's very wrong. And that does infringe on the rights of kids.
I understand that you believe that.
And all the scientific literature, by the way, backs that up.
That's not true.
It is true.
Fact check that, please.
It is true.
According to the National Institutes of Health, numerous studies have found that children raised by same-sex parents fare just as well as kids raised by different sex parents. Yeah, we just looked into that.
Let them
Turns out not much has changed since 2008 in that regard.
fact check that on
I'm
the
happy,
video
I'm happy
and
to
progress with the
I'm happy to
conversation.
fact check it for you right now.
No.
The study that
So he's getting owned. This has been 18 minutes of him getting owned.
you're referring to is the Michael Rosenfeld study out of Stanford in 2010. And
Nah, dude. Nah, dude. You've just heard one random person debunk that. What the heck are you talking about? Do you know anything about science that you think there's one study about this thing? What are you talking about, dude?
it said that kids raised in gay households did just as well in
It's
schools.
not-
Oh my God. He actually thinks there's one study that says that. We just looked at a 2008 meta-analysis of 19 studies.
A study.
And that no, it was a major study.
No,
but
you
it was
okay.
wrong.
Douglas Allen re-examined Michael Rosenfeld's study using alternative methods and found that when compared to traditional married households, children raised by same-sex couples are 35% less likely to make normal progress in school. Cool. I mean, cool. I don't care. You know what I mean?
It had a major
Let me-
methodological error, and it's
I
been
would love
corrected
to-
by multiple
I
other
would
studies.
love to engage with you on that in a
Would
sec.
you? Would you?
Yes, in a sec.
I
Well,
think
kind of not, dude, because you... So, okay, so it's worth pointing out, Michael has totally changed the point, right? Because they're no longer talking about essential characteristics now. Now he's talking about, instead, like, he doesn't even understand... I'm so glad I studied philosophy as an undergrad, because it really does help me understand arguments. Instead of talking about the nature of what marriage is, which was sort of faced into that question of like, why should we do things just because it's what they did in the past? That's a fallacy. But he didn't examine that deeply. Instead, now he switches to this thing of it's based on the outcomes. It's sort of this consequentialist. It's right because the outcomes are better. And he's wrong. He's making a more empirical claim that is wrong. It's more empirically easy to prove. It took me 1 second to look up that meta-analysis.
And
Not
my
like to engage on that.
point is the majority of people in society are okay with these things. And society's laws should reflect what the majority of people are okay with.
the
And if
majority
you-
of people were okay with slavery for much of the 19th century.
I don't even know if that's true, man. Do you think they polled people on that? I don't know, man.
So should society's laws just
And also, like, if they did poll people on that and they let black people vote, what do you think the result would be, man? Right? Or are you just referring to white people?
reflect that?
Wait, so now things that happened in the past are bad?
Some things that happened in the past
Okay,
are
thank
bad.
you
Some
for
things are
admitting
good.
that. Okay.
But some things are good.
But the thing
and
is,
some
is-
things that are happening now are very
But
bad
who's
too.
to determine what things from the past are good or bad, if not the present?
And are contrary to reason.
The problem is that slavery is bad. Gay
Right.
marriage, gay adoption, things like that are not bad.
They are bad.
No.
And gay marriage is non-existent and gay adoption is bad.
Then how am I gay married if it doesn't exist?
You're not.
I'm having an existential crisis after this.
You're not. People have all.
That would be such a funny prank for someone to pull on Michael, is like pretend that he like convinced you to leave your gay marriage and then like start by being like this fan, like give him like $50 on like Patreon or something, and then like message him and be like, dude, like you helped me. And I don't recommend doing this, obviously. No one should bother Michael and bother yourself by interacting with him. But it would be fun. It's a funny thought experiment to be like, reach out and be like, oh my God, I left my gay marriage because of you. I realized that I wasn't actually gay. And then like over the course of months, just like, you know, I don't know where the joke would go actually.
You guys see me?
You
Am I
exist.
here?
You exist, but gay marriage does not exist.
Okay.
And gay adoption is very bad for the kids. I'm not even knocking the guys who want to do
I
it.
mean, Michael, we just keep in mind he was empirically wrong and called out by the fact check.
Understand there's a natural longing to have kids, and homosexuals in a same-sex union can't create kids, which is part of the reason why it's not marriage. But it's
Part of the reason. There's no real necessary and sufficient aspect of the reason. There's just a bunch of like little parts that like have different amounts of how much they matter based on the flow of the conversation.
it's still bad for the kids.
Okay. Well, I thank you for correcting me on the word plutocratic. I otherwise completely disagree with everything you said.
All right. Well,
And I think most people do too, and that's why
I
the
don't know.
laws don't reflect your opinions on this.
most people around the world agree with what I said.
All right, guys.
All right.
I don't know if they do, man. I actually don't know if they do.
That's it for this claim. Please return
All
to
right.
your seat.
We're getting a new claim. So on to the next thing, the next claim here. And I don't know. I know I'm biased, but like this is way worse than I thought it was going to be. Like I'm always afraid that like, especially with Jubilee, you never know how things will come out. Like I'm always afraid, they're platforming him at the end of the day, and it is rough. It's to some extent, but he looks horrible. Like this is patently horrible. And like, keep in mind, like, do you know anyone who likes Michael Knowles?
Thank you. Thanks. My next claim is that transgenderism should be eradicated from public life.
Again, see how loaded his claims are. He doesn't actually understand what the best claim would be to do. But it does allow for a lot of conversation. Like, what do you mean by transgenderism? Right? Like, you could just add ism to things and be like, I'm talking about an ideology. And it's like, okay, what is that you're talking about? So here, this is the comment he made publicly that people said, that sounds like you're talking about killing people. And he's like, no, I just want to make them repress their identity, and I'm not concerned about how that affects their well-being. It's like, okay, thanks for clarifying that. I'm making this up. I don't remember if that's exactly how it happened.
Entirely.
I hope they all get to talk. They all get to talk, right?
Hi.
Hello.
Blossom. She, her, hers powerhouse.
The Blossom Powerhouse. Lovely to meet you.
Yes.
He's like, I'll be the judge on what your pronouns are.
Go ahead. I want to know your ideology around transgenderism, something that doesn't exist. It just sounds more like conservative propaganda. So I kind of want to know a little bit more about what you're trying to communicate.
Okay, I think for all of history everywhere.
Right, like everyone has to sit down and put it back on him and be like, do you want to, like the first guy had to do it last time. It was like, so do you want to like clarify your stupid loaded point?
People have understood the human person to have something to do with his body.
This one's going to be way harder. Because, dude, trans people have definitely existed in anthropology. Like, marriage being heterosexual, again, I was willing to stipulate that. It means nothing in terms of how we should treat it. Like, yeah, that's a legal institution. Trans identity, not a legal institution, definitely has existed probably longer than marriage, I would be sure.
So like your body has something to do with who you are. Now there is an alternative view, which is called Gnosticism. It's a view that our bodies don't really have anything to do with who we are, that the body is maybe even evil, and that our true selves have no connection to our bodies. And I see in the transgender ideology a kind of Gnosticism that says that you could look like a man, you could have a man's genetics, you could have a man's genitals, you could have a man's everything. But if you feel on some deep level that you're really a woman, then you are really a woman. And I don't think that's true. And I think that the social effects of that are really bad because it leads to the depriving women of their legitimate rights. In some cases, it leads to rapes, notably in the last.
Dude, isn't that weird that he's just like women? Okay, so the whole subject of trans people for him is about women. Now, is he even talking about just trans women? Or like, does he have an equal problem with like trans women as he does trans men? Like, bizarre, dude. Like, embarrassing. Yeah, like.
Last few years. And it also leads to women losing their sports competitions and their scholarships. And it's just disordered and false. And it also leads to more people adopting this identity, which leads to very high rates of anxiety, depression, and suicide. So it's bad for everyone, and it's not grounded in reality.
Okay, this is according to the Human Rights Campaign website. Around 5,000 to 3,000 BC, Gala, described as androgynous or trans priests of the Sumerian goddess Inanna, spoke their own dialect and took on feminine names. That sounds awesome. The dialect part, you know what I mean? I want to speak my own dialect. So, you know, who knows? You know, trans people have definitely existed as long as marriage, if not longer. I mean, it's just like, why wouldn't they, dude? Like, do you know anything about biology? Like, we're animals. Gender is not. It's like he makes these category errors of what gender itself is. He treats it as, I don't know. He treats it. I don't know. I hate thinking this hard about it. He's just fucking riffing.
I don't even think you understand what you say sometimes. I don't think you even understand what you say, because when we talk about these rape cases of women in the restroom, they're coming from cis men like you.
Yeah,
So
I mean, yes. Yeah.
No,
be very clear
no,
where it's
that's
coming
not true.
from.
In
Oh,
20,
it's
in
very, very
2020,
Oh, yeah, it is, dude.
Cis men do not interrupt
Look it up.
black
Well,
trans woman when she's
I'm
speaking.
just trying to
Do
correct
not
you.
interrupt
Well,
a
I would
black
never,
trans woman
I
when
would,
she's
I would
speaking.
never
No, no,
interrupt
no,
a black
no, no,
woman.
No, thank
He's like not acknowledging she's trans just openly.
You made
Here's the thing about me as a black trans woman. I am not a
And
threat
she's just like, yeah, I'm not afraid to tell you I'm trans, and I don't give a shit what you say.
to cis women, and I think it is harmful that you are going around here spewing that rhetoric.
And the
Why-
sad thing is, you know, there's just a little kicked sort of like little dog inside of him that just really does just want to be loved. And it's sad that he is such a shell of a person on top of that.
weaponizing this rhetoric against trans people.
Weaponizing facts?
Transgenderism does not exist. We as trans people exist. We are 1% of the population. And there is a lot of power in the trans identity, because you are sitting here spewing something to me that doesn't really
I'm not
exist.
spewing anything. I'm just stating facts plainly.
I have lived experience.
Yeah. He knows there were claims that he should be responding to other than that, but he doesn't actually want to because he doesn't have a good response to it. So he just chooses to respond to that. I'm not spewing. He's not going to respond to the claim about trans people existing forever.
You don't, and you never will. But I do have a question.
I have
for
lived
you.
experience.
What if one of your
I'm alive.
What if one of your kids came out as trans? How would you
God
react to
forbid.
that?
I mean, I would obviously love my children, and I
Okay.
would try to do what's best for my children. And the best thing that I could do to be respectful and also to be conducive to their flourishing is to tell them the truth, which is that they're not really girls.
And how do you think it would go from there, Michael? Not a big chess player, are you?
Come on. I can't even imagine your relationship with your children. No shade.
That's
But
right. That was right.
I just cannot even imagine that. But
Yeah, and one day, if not today, they will be old enough to watch this, Michael.
here's the
And everything you've done. You better hope they're bigoted if you want to have a relationship with them.
reality. We exist. Again, people like you do not have the intellectual capacity to hold conversations like this, because in a minute you're going to reduce this down to genitalia, and then we're going to have to shift it somewhere else, because obviously
No,
people
in a
like
minute-
you, that's where they go, right?
In a minute, what I'm going to do is correct something you said. When you said that
Go ahead.
the rapes that have occurred in these bathrooms are cis men.
White cis men, I should say, actually.
That isn't true. Loudoun County, 2021, the big case that actually ended up flipping the state was because there was a boy who wore.
Are you stupid, Michael? Like, come on, man. Like, you're not this dumb, right? You don't think it's a good point to bring up a case. You're responding to a different sort of claim about statistics. She's saying it's way more often that abusers or harassers or assaulters in bathrooms or anywhere are white cis men rather than trans people of any type. And it's obviously true. And if Michael ever bothered to Google the things he would say, if he was ever intellectually curious at all, he would not be doing the job he's doing right now. He doesn't have other skills. What's he going to do? Find a company to work at? Go into marketing? What's he going to do?
Went into the girl's bathroom and raped a girl in a particularly hideous way. And you know what happened? Hold on, don't cut me off. You said you wouldn't.
A cis boy. It was not a trans woman. All y'all do.
You're kidding me. He brought up a case where a cis person... Are you kidding me?
Don't
Let's go
think
back to cis boys. You're always talking about cis boys.
he was
I
wearing-
don't
he
understand
was
the
wearing-
fascination with trans bodies and what's happening in the bathroom. It is mostly happening.
I think
from
you're
white, cis
filibustering because you
men.
don't want me to tell you what happened in the
filibuster
bathroom.
who?
Me. I think you're
Oh,
filibustering
child,
me.
no.
I think that you're distracting from the fact that a boy wearing a skirt in a girl's
A
bathroom
boy,
raped a girl.
but not a trans woman.
Well, there's no such thing as a trans woman.
Oh, yes,
so
it is.
there's
You're looking at one right now.
I'm looking
You're
at-
looking at me
I'm
right
looking
now.
at a-
With lived experience.
I'm looking at a-
With
Okay, I don't know about that case, but it's obviously very personal for this woman who's talking with him. It's like extreme. I can't imagine having to sit there and the person who's in a gay marriage before the man. Like, it's just like I I can't imagine sitting across. I don't know that I've ever had to sit across from someone denying an aspect of my identity. I don't know that I've ever had that experience. I mean, I can't imagine how that would happen, but that would be extremely difficult to deal with. But yeah, as a more neutral observer, I can look at this and say also, hold on.
Particularly hideous way. And you know what happened? Hold on, don't cut me off.
Yeah, he brought up a single case. I don't care if they were cis or trans. That was a total single case. It doesn't mean anything about what they're talking about.
I'm not really talking.
This here over 20 years who has lived experience.
Yes,
you're talking to an activist here.
But your identity is not grounded in reality. I'm not really talking to anyone because you keep talking over me.
In your head, I'm not, but I am in reality.
Yeah.
I'm here in front of you right now talking to you.
You're confused about your identity.
No, you are confused at the fact that you don't really have any talking points right now because I'm.
Then why aren't you letting me speak?
You really don't.
If I have nothing to say, why aren't you letting me speak?
Michael, because we don't, you know what I mean? Like, it's not that original stuff you're saying.
Your show. How about that?
Then it would become your show, I think.
Oh, yeah, I should have a show. I should have a show.
In 2018, there were 2 rapes in bathrooms, and one in Wisconsin, one in Georgia.
From men.
Also because of the transgender identity.
But say it.
I'm not sure why. Does she know these cases, and were they cis men? I'm a bit confused by her response, but I'm way more confused about why he is bringing up single cases. Are you stupid in a very deep way? Like, we're not talking about single cases, Michael. We're talking about statistics and patterns. Sometimes I think people might not have super good pattern recognition abilities.
If you're going to describe a boy who wears a skirt and goes into a girl's bathroom as a cis man, no, I didn't.
No, you are.
Were they actually cis men? I don't know why she's making that point if they weren't, but yeah.
This is the example that you run to. Past that, you have nothing.
I've just given you 3 examples.
Nothing.
I've given you 3 examples in recent years.
You don't. You've been struggling this entire time.
To me. Have I?
Yeah, you have.
I think the trans lady doth protest too much, methinks.
Bye. Goodbye.
Perhaps I'll see you on my show.
Yes, invite me.
Yeah.
Get my email. Tell your people to get my email address.
Yeah, he will never do that. He is not open to, I don't watch his show, but I doubt he has people who disagree with him in a fundamental way on his show. He probably has he has a Protestant on his show, and he's like, hey, look at me, I'm diverse. Wow, they cut to the person before who's gonna make it. It's kind of foreshadowing. Someone let the guy in pink sit down. He's been so close each time.
Hello.
Hi. Okay, so if we're gonna think about women getting raped in bathrooms, right? It's a small percentage of trans people.
Thank you. Okay, so it's so great getting a fresh perspective in to, and especially when they're really motivated to actually pick up the thread.
I'm not denying that that's happening because it is a reality and it's an awful thing for women to have to go through.
Yeah.
But then what are we doing about the men that are the 93% of sexual violence towards women?
No, hopefully arresting them and putting them in prison.
And what are you doing before that? Why are men the highest percentage for this? If it's such a bad thing for trans women to use the bathroom.
Oh, he doesn't want to think deeply about it. No. Oh, you want him to think deeply about it? Oh, come on.
Very, very, very small amount of women are being
You want him to
by
ask why?
Trans women. Why are we not having any sort of things before for men?
I think we try to enforce our laws and protect people from rape, and so we take
apparently not very well.
No, I think relatively well. We have a.
Are you campaigning about it?
Relatively low rate of these kinds of violent crimes compared to other.
Right. The thing you brought up, relatively low, even on the whole, let alone the trans people who have done it, which is a super small number. Dude, and trans people are subject to violence way more than they're committing violence against other people. Jesus Christ.
Places in the world. But in one area, we're talking about men forcing themselves into women's bathrooms. This is one area where we don't need to allow them to do that. It's a need.
It's so interesting because what he's saying is built on the idea that men are fundamentally violent. And women are fundamentally weak. It's a key part of what he's saying.
Risk. It's based on...
And everything he's saying is just a smokescreen to get that point across in a more abstract way. And in a slightly more socially acceptable way. Really? I mean, at what point, you think 10, 20 years, President J.D. Vance is not going to be saying, women are subservient to men inherently. Fuck it, 1 year. But it's not, it's not cool anymore. Like, and they're still trying to make homophobia cool and transphobia cool. No. Time's passed, buddy.
On a false view of reality and claims of rights, so-called rights, from confused men that infringe on the legitimate rights of women.
It's just so interesting that he's not concerned with trans men. Like, it's just so revealing. I'm like trying to make sense of it. I know people write about this, but it's like he only cares about masculinity being discarded. Well, first of all, he just cares about there being freedom of choice in terms of gender identity, which again is his position is anti-scientific. People have always had choices in this regard. And of many organisms change sex and don't have a fixed sex. And don't have binary sex sometimes, but yeah, everything he's saying, yeah. Anyways,
women.
We're not going to watch the whole thing, by the way. This is already a very long video. I'll watch maybe the rest of this point or something. I don't know.
Bathrooms, but also in
the rest of
sports
this claim or something.
Competitions, also in scholarships, also in just about.
Dude, give me a break, man.
Anywhere else in society. So I think that we have the right to insist upon some kind of reality, because I think
sports
not only
competitions and scholarships. Why would you care about, first of all, the small amount of sports competitions that are in any way impacted? And by the way, trans people they're not automatically better and stronger and faster. But like, also scholarships, why would you care about that? What's wrong with a trans person getting a scholarship? Unless you want there to be less scholarships available for women or something in general. Just make more scholarships, dude, or make school cheaper. How about? Have you ever thought about it at all?
Will that be better for women? Not only will that be better for society broadly, but that especially will be better for the individuals who are confused about their gender identity.
Okay, well, science definitely doesn't support that, but you've never looked it up.
And how are you going to prevent trans women from using the female bathroom? How are you going to tell? What's the tea?
There are some giveaways,
okay.
Contrary to what the trans activists
and what are
say.
They?
Men who identify as women, you can usually tell.
And what are they? You can say you can tell all you want.
Yeah, broad shoulders, Adam's apple, and like the face, and
Right.
Yeah. You can tell. You can usually tell.
Usually.
Not all the time, but usually.
Okay. So if you can only usually tell, what are you going to do to prevent it?
Well, look, a man who doesn't even identify as trans, a man who's just a nefarious fellow, could sneak into a woman's bathroom, and so we have to enforce the law.
93%.
Right. That's
what do you do?
He does not know how to stick to a point at all.
Doing about men.
We should enforce the law against people who break it.
And what are you doing before that? Like, why is it a continuous pattern for men?
We teach
to do
people
this?
in class.
You're not teaching them very well, apparently. I mean, we have Republican parties who are literally putting a president who is a felon who has sexually assaulted people. What does that say to men?
Yeah, no one really buys that.
I bought it.
No one really buys that. No one seriously thinks that Donald Trump is a rapist. I know we pretend because
there's a lot of cases, man.
Democrats were trying to.
He settled with E. Jean Carroll.
Prosecute him 4 different ways and kicking him off the.
If rape is such a bad thing, why don't you believe women when they say it's happening? Because you're not believing Trump when he says that he didn't do it. You're whatever, but you're not believing the woman.
Yeah, the claim you're making about Trump obviously was not criminally prosecuted. It comes from about 30 years ago from a woman who previously said that she likes rape and finds it, scintillating. Gross. And I know it's terrible.
Trump loses appeal of E. Jean Carroll $5 million defamation sexual assault verdict. Federal Appeals Court on Monday upheld, this is in last year, upheld a $5 million verdict that E. Jean Carroll won against Donald Trump when a jury found the U.S. president liable for sexually abusing and later defaming the former magazine columnist. A unanimous 3-judge panel of the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Manhattan rejected Trump's argument that the trial judge should not have let jurors hear evidence about the Republicans' alleged past sexual misconduct, making the trial and verdict unfair. The court said that evidence, including Trump bragging about his sexual prowess on an Access Hollywood video, prowess, that's one way to put it, Reuters, that surfaced during the 2016 presidential campaign, established a repeated... Oh, yeah, he didn't want you to look at context. Incident where he, Jurors in federal court in Manhattan did not find that he committed rape. They awarded the former Elle magazine advice columnist E. Jean Carroll for sexual assault. So they found sexual assault. Oh, so why did they phrase it that way and not say that he committed sexual assault? Seems strange. Reuters. Anyways, so that's just one case.
So anyway,
Yeah, no woman has ever said that.
That woman did. The Trump's accuser literally said that to Anderson Cooper on CNN.
Okay. I mean, some people do have that fantasy. I don't know why she said that. I don't know the context. But that also doesn't mean she can't be sexually assaulted.
CNN. But, you know.
Sure, I'm sure a fetish with like consenting adults might be different, but no woman knowingly goes out into this world and says, I love to be raped.
I'm just using the example you brought up, which is the accuser of Donald Trump. But anyway, no one really believes Trump's a rapist. And so your question is, why don't we... Okay, I guess maybe some people in this room.
I do. I mean, I think it's logical to look at the evidence and come to the conclusion. I don't necessarily know. I haven't done a deep dive into all his cases, but he does have a lot of them. And I do think him appointing people like Hegseth, who have solid cases against him too. Obviously Kavanaugh. There's definitely others. I mean, I think it's quite a pattern.
You ask, why don't we just believe all women all the time? Well,
that's actually not what she said. What she was asking was, if you care about protecting women, why do I seem to know you as someone who doesn't seem to often defend women who talk about being assaulted? And I'm just assuming that Michael has that as a pattern of behavior. I'm quite sure he does. He's against... anyways, there's this conflation of what believe all women means.
I do think we should give a lot of deference to people who are accusing others of crimes. And so, we have courts of law to adjudicate these claims. So I don't know. I don't think women are incapable of lying, but I do think that we should protect their legitimate political rights.
Even when women do lie, though, it's a very, very, very small percentage.
Yeah.
Point blank period. So what again...
About the subject, Michael. Do you forget what you're talking about, you dumbass?
Are you doing, like, you care to claim about women so much because trans people in the bathroom is so scary.
My claim
what
here
are we doing
is,
in other areas?
my actual claim here is that transgenderism is false and we should eradicate it from public life because it's harmful to everyone.
Okay.
That's my actual, if you want to talk about the claim,
let's start with that then.
Yeah.
What does transgenderism in public look like to you?
It's allowing men to be treated for the purposes of the law as women. It's men.
So he's saying social transition, like it should be illegal for people to identify. I mean, and now it is. I mean, they're actually doing it. They're actually making it illegal to be trans. Like they're trying to do that. Do you see what they're doing? What the Republican president and the administration is doing? The Republicans, both parties are the same. Oh, are they? Look at what the Republicans are doing to trans people. They're kicking them out of federal positions when they can. They're discriminating against them. Do you know how bad this is? Like, this is so bad. This is a lot of people. And it's just, and he supports this type of thing, apparently. Of course he does. He probably wishes it goes further than it has.
Sports trophies from women.
You see these famous people, even someone made a video, a famous actor, I think, her passport was changed. Her pronouns were changed on her passport by the new administration. The Republican administration changed her passport, even though she's been transitioned since she was a kid. She's been transitioned for so long, and they changed her gender marker. It's fascist. It's fascist control. It's fascist control based on hearkening back to a traditional structure, social structure based in the oppression of minorities. I mean, I don't know.
In recent years, and
they didn't take 900.
They took 900. There's a report just came out from the United Nations, actually, 890 trophies and medals across six.
A UN report stated over 600 female athletes have lost more than 890 medals in 29 different sports. The August in what time period? The August 2024 report also stated the replacement of the female sports category with a mixed sex category has resulted in an increasing number of female athletes. So that's different. Isn't that different than acknowledging trans people's existence in sports and letting them be themselves? You know, having open categories like where women are playing against men is certainly different than having categories where trans women are involved in women's sports, like, right? But also I don't give a shit. Like, in my opinion, this is like, these bodies can come up with their rules themselves, and like they should be policing themselves. And like, you know, like the International Chess Organization has made terrible statements about trans people, and it is the role of everyone who is involved in the chess world to change that. For example, protest, not go show up to tournaments or something, do something to make it better. But anyways, I don't know. I guess his point is that this is like a lot of people suffering, so that the idea that like the resolving the conflict of the issue of trans women in women's sports and certain women's sports means eradicating trans people from public life. Do you realize a Mott and Bailey, like, or whatever, what is it called? He's just totally changed the point from a way stronger claim to, like, you're supporting eradicating trans people from public life with the claim that they affect sports and scholarships. Does that really follow, Michael? Does that follow? Are those really such big issues that we need to get rid of trans people being themselves? Does that follow, Michael?
600 women who were competing competitors across 29 different sports and 400 competitions. That came out like men who were competing competitors across 29 different sports and 400 competitions. That came out
like you memorized those numbers.
Yesterday.
And they deserved them.
It didn't happen, and they deserve them. Okay, that is the logic I hear from the pro-trans crowd. Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, she's not going to necessarily know about every example. Again, this is what dishonest communicators do. They hinge their argument on their opponent not knowing about a particular example.
They do deserve them, because I'm sure they followed the specifications for the sport, and that's why they were there in the first place.
And also, I say that sports should decide it independently, because look, what it means for a trans woman to be in a sport might be different from sport to sport. I honestly don't really know. I would assume you just let trans women compete. It seems like a really small % of change, and you just don't make it a big deal. That seems to be the case to me. And it'd be interesting to poll female athletes and ask what they think. Hold on. Female athletes' opinions on trans athletes poll. Okay, this is a poll of just everyone. But yeah, the poll of everyone says 30% of those who know. Hold on. Yeah, that's more complicated. Yeah, there's a lot of people saying that birth gender should dictate sports participation. I'm just curious, what is the percentage? Okay. Hold on, this is a Gallup poll. Americans' views on transgender athletes. People should be able to play on teams that match identity, so it's going down, support for trans people, and only on teams that match birth identity is going up. And I'm just curious, because like it is strange to just like poll, like it's not strange, but I am curious what like female athletes think. Here we go. Hold on. Are we going to be able to read this article? No, I don't want to actually buy a subscription to Forbes right now, believe it or not. Features the 2024 UK report on trans athletes. Features the voices of females, so cisgender. You could just use the word cisgender, Forbes, who have experienced sports competing against trans athletes. Their voices spoke about it. There are only a few transgender athletes, they said. And the hundreds of males taking part in women's sports are actually affecting tens of thousands of women and girls. The subjects in this report describe a multiplier effect in which hundreds of males... What? Oh, okay. No, these women actually are against trans people. Oh, okay. I see. So I'm just worried. Are these a particular... Who are these women? Oh, okay. Yeah, this is one of those things. I wasn't looking for a letter. Yeah, we know what sex is. Gender identity. Wow, this is a very biased article, actually. Oh, it's an opinion. Oh, okay. Okay, no, I thought we were getting an actual... Hold on. Most Americans, female athletes support categories. A survey also revealed that... Okay, here. Hold on. Let's hear. This is 2024 peer-reviewed publication. Most female athletes support categorization by biological sex. Okay, fair enough. I mean, look, 58%, so not overwhelming. But look, it's a complicated issue. I think you have to go and let people democratically decide this stuff and let everyone's voices be heard. And I think in general, people will support their friends and family competing. Okay, so 175 world-class female athletes from a range of sports, 58% support categorization by biological sex rather than gender identity. Great. So this is a great resource. So that's useful to understand. It's very controversial. It's split. Importantly, the present data demonstrates that, to the best of our current understanding, high-level competitive athletes do not show evidence of negative opinions towards gender transition in general, with 94.2% being supportive. So that's the important thing, Michael.
Hello.
They do it again. They foreshadow. They cut to the person who's about to make it. It's like, show me the person who doesn't make it. Show me the pink guy.
So I think I want to start off by asking you what your solution is to, like, the word eradicating. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean by that?
Well, the word literally means to pull up by the root.
What's your political program, Michael? You less than intelligent person.
So not just to have some half measure where you say,
The question is, what's your political program? Not do you have any analogies for the word eradicate?
Okay, we're only going to trans kids after the age of 9. But
oh my God. He treats it like something you do to someone. He's disgusting.
The age of 9. Okay, we're only going to let men who identify as women go into this bathroom, but not that
Oh
sport.
my God, he's obsessed with trans women and bathrooms. It's weird, dude. Have other examples.
Team or whatever. I don't think a half measure makes any sense. In fact, I think a lot of the conservative arguments.
You're not answering my question. What's the solution?
Oh, it means to uproot it.
How do you do that? I want to know how you're going to uproot an entire percentage.
Her question actually wasn't what is the etymology of the word eradicate.
Of people.
I'm not uprooting people. I would return American public law to what it was before roughly 2015.
I don't understand the perspective
Oh, yeah. And where would you turn back other laws?
of how you or the Conservative Party is going to make any sort of progress in eradicating an entire percentage. I think it's just
we're not eradicating people. You're trying to say that because it makes us look crazy.
That's what you're saying.
No, I said I want to eradicate a whole ideology.
But the thing is, man, like trans people are like trans in their deepest parts of themselves. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I'm not trans, so I'm not 100% sure. That's what it seems like. You know what I mean? That they're like super deeply aware of this stuff on levels that definitely you're not from outside. So it's just like you have less information and it's strange that you don't realize that.
Transgender.
Like you have less information when you're talking to a trans person and you're suggesting that you know more about them than they know about themselves. You should understand that outside of a conversation of gender identity, you're making strange privileges to yourself about what you believe you can know.
Trans people. that is going to be people that you are
No.
taking.
Like if I want to eradicate poverty, that doesn't mean I want to kill all the poor people.
I'm not, saying,
quite the opposite,
I'm not
right?
saying that you want to kill. I'm asking you what your plan, like what in the best case scenario, how are you going to get people?
Yeah, but if you said you wanted to eradicate poor people, would actually be the analogy. I mean, you say transgenderism. So it is like, yeah, I mean, like, but that's the problem, that you did make up a term, essentially. It's that you didn't make it up. Obviously, you're not creative, but it's actually, you're saying you want to eradicate recognition of trans people's identities, and you're not accepting what the consequences are. Has anyone ever talked to him about what the consequences are?
To stop being trans.
I think we want to tell boys that they're not girls,
So we're
that they're
going to tell
boys.
boys that they're not girls, and they're going to listen.
Yeah, basically.
Really?
Yeah, that's what we've done for most of history.
That
Yeah.
happened to me, and I can promise you to God that I didn't listen.
Yeah, well,
He's like, oh shit, I didn't clock you.
because we live at a time that is affirming the transgender delusion. But if we lived at a more sensible time, probably you would have listened, and you might
A
have had
time inside of my mind.
And I think we should just return to a more sensible kind of
But
politics.
how? What is yours? You're not giving a solution
He's
on
like skirting away from anything like a concrete statement.
how you would even be capable of
Yeah, I
doing
think I am.
something
I
like
think
that.
we kicked the fellas out of the boys' bathroom. We kicked the
How are
transgender
you
teaching
going
out.
Dude, do you even know enough about the subject to just say what your political program is without talking about bathrooms? Do you, like, I mean, we're seeing it now in 2025. We are genuinely seeing stuff that he's not even creative enough to think of in terms of oppressing people because of their trans identity. And it is absolutely bigoted, just like discrimination on other bases. It's bigoted, and only stupid people do it because they're childish.
schools.
that.
We just enforce the law as it was before 2015.
There was
It's not
a
that
law
hard.
Childish in a bad way. Children are actually not bigoted usually.
prohibiting trans women to go into the women's bathroom or trans men going into the men's
Don't even take him seriously like that about the bathroom thing.
Yeah, it's there in the term women's bathroom.
That's a law.
That's why men can't go
That's
in.
a law.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he's in so much denial. He can't be honest in communication.
Yes, there are all sorts of laws against public indecency, for one, against men going into women's sports leagues. There are all sorts of regulations against that, or at least there were until recently. We did
We
not
bring up these kind of unrelated
have
things.
established in public life transgenderism until very, very recently.
That's not true.
That's not true.
That's
And
not
how
true.
has no one mentioned that yet?
What about the two-spirited people?
What is the two-spirited people?
In the indigenous community, they are. I don't want to get into semantics. But
Oh, you need to know every detail of what you're about to bring up, or else Michael will not only discard it and not give you any benefit of the doubt because he's not a charitable, honest communicator and intellectually honest with himself, but he will actually view himself as correct if you can't explain every single detail of the example you're about to bring up. No, he will not return to the point.
I know that the fact is that there has always been trans people.
Do you know where the phrase two-spirited came from?
Good. Yeah, she immediately went back to the point. Oh, wow, that was illuminating. Let's look at that moment again. Because what she does is she goes from, should I try to speculate about what I know about this from memory, what I remember about this anthropological subject that I just read about a couple times maybe, or read a book about? Or should I get back to the point and the general principle that trans people have always existed and watch her get back to that point and him immediately and swiftly return to, do you know the specifics of that example you just brought up that sounds like it proves me wrong and I want to focus on a different aspect of it? Wow, watch this.
About the two-spirited people.
What is the two-spirited people?
In the indigenous community, they are. I don't want to get into semantics, but I know that the fact is that there has always been trans people.
Do you know where the phrase two-spirited came from?
Interesting. Isn't that interesting? The way he refuses to focus on the pattern and the question, the actual relevant question. He wants to. I mean, he's been on the defensive because he's been doing a horrible job the last half hour, which we're gonna finish at the end of this question. I'm not doing the whole thing right now.
I don't. Please enlighten me.
It came from the 3rd annual Intertribal Native American First Nations Gay and Lesbian Americans Conference in 1990.
Oh my God, that's surprising. I didn't realize he knew about that. Okay, cool. So I don't know anything about this. Let's assume he's right. They'll probably fact check him. Let's stipulate he's right. And keep in mind, if he was smarter, he would be like, okay, I should focus on the trans people have always existed thing, but he's trying to prove a very specific point and pretend it's representative.
And the woman who coined that term...
I just don't think that that's true.
Two-spirit is an indigenous term to describe an individual who identifies as having a masculine and feminine spirit. It was coined by Elder Myra Laramie in 1990. The term came to her in a dream. Cool. I mean, I don't, again, it's just like, it's like one study. Like, it's like one thing. There's a lot of different indigenous groups, and there's a lot of different perspectives on gender. And if Michael was honest, he would respond to that. You need to force him to.
It's true. The woman who coined that term admitted. Hold on. Let me just finish my point on this. The woman who coined that term, Maya Laramie, admitted somewhat recently that the term two-spirit came to her in a dream.
It's actually really fascinating that to him that makes it false. It is kind of interesting. It is interesting that like you don't hear people talk about this much, but I feel like it's my job. Like, it is interesting to make part of his political program the devaluation of dreams. It is kind of interesting.
In 1990. Now, the Ojibwe Nation actually has translated this term. It's the niche.
Because, I mean, the subconscious territory is more territory that he cannot control. Just like women. Not to call women territory. I'm just saying everything outside of himself that he can't control, he is grasping to try to control.
But they translated it from the English in 1990.
How you're capable of eradicating an entire percentage of people by setting laws, because people are
I think you're choosing not to hear what I'm saying, because I'm saying we don't want to.
I mean, you're choosing to like focus on the least charitable aspect of the conversation.
Eradicate any people. We want to eradicate.
But no, it's the word people. He's like focusing on that. He's not trying to. And someone needs to be like, what do you think would happen? We almost got to it when we were like, you think little kids are just going to be like, okay, I won't be the gender I am. We almost got there, but no one knows how to pursue a thread because he makes it so difficult. It takes two to tango.
Or it is transgenderism, which is an ideology, not a group of people.
I am a transgender person. You can't just skip over that.
You are a confused person, but you're not.
Babe. I'm so secure in myself, and there's other women in this room that are also trans, have been trans for 20 plus years.
And there's probably trans men, right?
Years, babe, that know exactly what they're doing.
You're confused because it's not possible for a man to become a woman.
Looking at somebody without knowing their bodily autonomy, knowing anything that's going on with their medical history, anything.
Because I know
nothing
I know the basics of human nature.
You know nothing about me.
It's so funny that he like wouldn't like talk about natural law. And he's like, he is doing so. Okay, arguing from the argument. This is a fallacy, right? Argument from nature as being inherently true.
I know that you're human, and I know a little bit about human nature.
He just makes these category errors.
And I know that a boy can't become a girl. So that's what I know.
Does anybody want to take over?
Yeah, it's just like at a certain point, it's just like, why would you even carry on? And again, notice that's why he learns this stuff. It is self-serving. It allows him to get away from a difficult conversation where he was being challenged by performing bigotry. All right, 5 more minutes of this. Let's see how this goes. Or 6.
You're tapping out.
Yeah, man, you make yourself kind of difficult to talk to, man. And it's like, people are just like, what's the point? Please stop foreshadowing.
Okay. I feel like I did you dirty there.
That was very unchivalrous.
I'll let you. I'll only take a sec, okay? Everyone, just vote me out in like a minute or two. Okay.
You can just leave the other person, but you're nervous. I am not trying to be a dick.
I want to make a very quick point.
Yep.
That was about a lot of stuff. Oh my God, you'd be great at Jeopardy. All these
Thank
things.
you. Thanks.
Okay, so you mentioned what you would do if your kid.
Great at Jeopardy, not political commentary.
Came to you and said, in a medical sense, they had gender dysphoria, right?
Yeah,
and gender dysphoria.
Okay, thank you. This guy's good too at getting back on track for sure.
Medical diagnosis where somebody's sense of their gender is not matched to their physical gender-related characteristics and/or the way society perceives them.
Yep.
In a world where gender-affirming care is allowed, as a parent, you still have the right to not have your kid go through that care, right?
In some places. In some places, you don't.
Yeah. According to NIH, parental or caregiver consent is necessary for a minor to receive transgender care. Yeah, that's not surprising. There might be some states where maybe kids have a bit more rights, which might allow them to consent. I mean, I think kids should be allowed to consent to hormones without a parent's permission, as long as a doctor signs off on it. Personally, because I do think there are fringe cases where like kids don't have the ability to have a parent's consent. But it is controversial. I mean, you could say, but I think with a doctor's permission, it's like, don't we trust our doctors? I don't, so anyways, but yeah, he's wrong on the facts here.
Not have your kid go through that care, right?
In some places. In some places you don't.
Why is it?
Or he's like generally wrong, at least. He's way too confident.
Every major medical association supports access to this care.
The Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation compiled the list of 35 major medical associations that support access to transgender care. So yeah, like all the major medical associations.
It isn't true. Sweden, Finland, and the UK all just banned the cross-sex or the puberty blockers for children.
The UK banned puberty blockers in December 2024. Finland prioritizes psychological treatment but does allow them in certain circumstances. Sweden also prohibits treatments but has exceptions for research settings. Okay. See, Michael, when we talk about accommodating the exceptions like we do with, heterosexuality not being everyone, so we accommodate people who are different and we don't just view them as doing a essentially different thing just because they're gay. Like, just because we allow exceptions to be included in our world doesn't mean we base our world on those exceptions necessarily. You know what I mean? We don't have to adapt our whole society. Like, we're not forcing everyone to have gay marriages. You know what I mean? We're just allowing people to have gay marriages. So like that, we're not going to force everyone to have those same regressive laws. We can allow those countries to do what they do because that's, I guess, their right. I don't know. But we don't have to do that.
Because
they are exceptions.
Last review of the transgender studies.
Walked into my trap, Michael.
Okay.
I learned about the CAS review. The CAS review was done by Dr. Hillary Cass, a pediatrician, on behalf of the NHS.
Yeah.
They did not find any evidence of harm, and they did not recommend a ban, and a ban did not happen. They did not find any evidence.
Rationale for early puberty suppression remains unclear with weak evidence regarding the impact on okay. Well, they're talking about the report he's talking about.
Evidence of harm, and they did not recommend a ban, and a ban did not happen. All they did was
a ban on what? A ban on what?
Puberty blockers.
On puberty blockers.
All they did was limit access to research settings. France did a similar national review. They found the opposite thing. So here's the problem.
So the UK did ban it. That's something you said.
No, they restricted it. Have you ever seen?
What's the difference?
Okay, they did, and it's also not the point because we don't have to do what the UK does.
They banned it for kids. They're not banned.
I mean, it's just. Do you understand why puberty is a significantly difficult thing for trans people to go through?
There you go. That's the difference. So, have you ever watched a toothpaste commercial, Michael? This is my line I prepared. I want to say. Okay. So,
my guest. Yes.
When they say 9 out of 10 dentists recommend this toothpaste?
Yeah.
I feel like what you guys do is you point to the 10th dentist.
Who's you guys?
The people who are conservatives and advocate your position.
Yeah.
You say, look at the 10th dentist. They're a dentist, and they think the toothpaste is terrible. What about the other 9 dentists? Why is there a global medical...
Yeah, because he doesn't understand statistics and numbers, and he has fundamental problems in that regard.
Consensus.
There isn't a global medical consensus.
Yes, there is. Okay, glad, gay and lesbian...
I just named 3 examples that didn't agree with the other ones that I didn't name.
Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. I bet you didn't know that acronym.
I did not.
Google GLAAD medical associations. They have a page where all of this is just links to 30-something medical associations.
But you're suggesting that the review by the NHS of the puberty blockers is the 10th dentist, and it's not. And furthermore, even the New York...
Michael, before furthermore, you're supposed to say why. That's called substantiating a claim with a line of reasoning. And it's very necessary to arguments.
New York Times, which I don't read. I don't like the New York Times.
Dr. New York Times?
Why are these three examples not exactly like that 10th doctor in the analogy?
Hold on. Let me just make this point. The New York Times came out very recently in 2022. The puberty blockers, contrary to what we've been told, are not, in fact, often reversible. That is one of the reasons why you're seeing major restrictions, if you like to call it that, moving toward full bans in multiple countries, is because it causes all sorts of problems for kids long term.
Have you ever met a kid with asthma?
Yes.
So a kid with asthma might be prescribed. I'm sorry, I'm blanking here. This is hard. This is hard. Yes, thank you. It's a steroid, right?
Yeah.
Steroids can have side effects. Doctors monitor for side effects.
Yes.
So puberty blockers can have side effects. Doctors monitor for side effects.
The problem is that asthma responds to a real medical condition where you have trouble breathing.
Gender dysphoria is in the DSM.
It's...
Yeah, man. No, gender dysphoria is definitely a real thing. So again, but he's like, but I don't think it's real, just like gay marriage.
Okay.
All right, you're out.
Thank you.
But he's like, but my daddy told me it's not real.
Sure, round two. Yes, there we go. Yes, thank you.
I'm happy to continue this.
Yeah, and I bet this guy meant to leave earlier, but you get wrapped up in Michael's BS.
Happily, yeah.
All right, I added 5 more minutes.
No. Oh no, we can't do 8 more minutes of this. I'm sorry.
Hello.
This is way too long. I'll just watch a few.
Hi. I'm
Lex.
Fuck you, Jubilee. I'm kidding, YouTube. I'm not trying to start drama. Don't suppress it.
Nice to meet you. I'm Michael.
I want to talk about the term eradication.
Okay.
Eradicating trans identities, sure. Trans people is really what you're referring to.
That's not what I'm referring to.
I mean, it is though. It is in a sense though, because he doesn't want there to be an existence of trans people. So he is getting rid of the existence of trans people. So he can say he doesn't mean killing them, and he can disregard the actual consequences of denying people's identities, but he is technically saying he wants there to be no trans people.
So I want to chat about...
It's not just the ideology. He wants there to be no trans people.
I've seen that before. Can you guess?
Where? I'm going to guess you're going to say something about Hitler.
Do you want to know the first book burning that the Nazi Party did?
Please, yes.
It was...
Oh, he's never heard this?
The Library of Queer and Trans History.
It's outrageous. I heard Martin Luther burn Thomas Aquinas' book.
Michael, is your brain okay? Like, do you see a neurologist about anything? Because you seem to make category errors in fundamental ways that are a little strange.
Books, which bothers me even more.
It's so funny you want to bring up Martin Luther right now, but that's a whole other conversation. My point
Plato advocated
is
book burning.
fascism as a whole really loves to hone in on small portions of society. And right now, I'm sorry, I'm going to outright call you a fascist.
Oh, no.
And say
heaven,
what you're
heaven
saying is
forfend.
hate speech. What you're calling for is an eradication of an entire community of human beings that deserve
Just because
to
you
exist,
say that doesn't make it
deserve
true.
to have rights, that deserve
They do deserve
and
to have rights.
respect.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
And
I totally
you,
agree.
But not the right to just be who they are, which doesn't affect me at all.
I think you're very disrespectful to them by lying to them.
And also, he totally got proven wrong about the assaults in the bathrooms thing, and just never really understood that he got proved wrong because he doesn't understand statistics. That is a fundamental thing.
Lying is very disrespectful. Yeah.
Guys, do you feel like I'm lying to you? Okay. Just want to make sure.
But you are. You know, I guess you know what? You might not be lying in that.
Michael's sitting in a room full of people. I mean, they're there to disagree with him, so he obviously discards their opinions. But I don't know.
Might be confused yourself, and lying is an intentional. Is telling an intentional untruth.
So I also want to talk about.
Oh yeah, he's like, no, you're in denial. Trust me, I'm in that all the time.
Puberty blockers and these long-term effects that actually haven't been studied. There are genuinely no long-term studies on puberty blockers that have been repeated enough to be accepted by the American Academy of Pediatrics.
I grant that it's hard to find data on these things.
I grant that it's hard to find evidence for my claims, sure. But keep in mind that I made them very confidently.
Academy of clinical endocrinologists who are the clinical experts.
But the data that we do have persuaded even people who formerly
hate that word. Data has so many associations for me.
Advocated puberty blockers to recognize that they are not totally reversible.
But they haven't, because
he never called, by the way. But I'll talk about that tomorrow on the podcast.
I'm sorry. We can fact check this at home, but I counted before I came in here 13 different governing bodies of medical professionals who all
35
support unanimously access to puberty blockers.
But he named 3 that didn't.
Affirming care.
Right, but
which is a 1 in 10 ratio, actually less than that 1 out of 10 doctor thing.
3 whole nations that don't support it anymore.
And guess how many nations do, Michael?
More. Who previously did, like Sweden was the most probably pro-trans country in the world. There are how many countries that believe in transgenderism?
Yeah, I like that they spoke out. Like, just fucking do it. Like, who cares about the rules? How many countries are there?
Many. Not that many that believe in transgenderism.
Access to puberty blockers.
Yeah, no, there are. If you're defining transgenderism as the acknowledging of trans identities, there's definitely a lot of countries that acknowledge trans identities. I mean, will they just pull it up, or do I have to look it up?
That's okay.
Okay, hold on. How many? Okay, the number of countries that accepts transgender people varies depending on the specific rights being considered and whether the country has laws that criminalize transgender people. As of 2020, 96 countries have processes that allow transgender... Oh, I guess, are we talking about specifically children getting puberty blockers? Or it seems like a specific part of it, but... Like, I mean... Accept children puberty block, even though I don't know that those 3 countries were related to this subject. Countries that restrict or ban, countries that allow 3. I mean, medical associations in the U.S. support the use of puberty blockers. That's not important, though. That's only our society. Minors in 6 European countries can access puberty blockers. Oh, this is an older article before the UK took themselves out of that group. But again, I mean, it's just such a specific point. He's wrong in so many ways.
All on your own.
Yeah, no one even. That would be such a funny turn for everyone to just be like, what's even the point? And they're like, we have like an hour left to do this.
You got it.
Thank you. Whoa, look at all the support coming from Mindy. I really appreciate it. I just find it interesting how usually this is Matt Walsh stick from y'all's place, and it seems like you're trying to leech on it from a lot of the media attention that you got from transgenderism should be eradicated.
Nice.
You want to talk a little bit more about why a woman should be doing that instead of a man like Matt Walsh?
People don't usually confuse me for Matt Walsh. They usually confuse me for Rachel Maddow. But she didn't come to your eyes.
You present very feminine, which is why I feel like it's weird that you keep calling yourself like he or this term Michael.
Well,
I still have yet to see a birth certificate.
I'm glad that you recognize that there are stereotypical behaviors of men and women, and that.
Michael, do you think trans people don't recognize that? He's on the right track, but he doesn't stay on it very long.
They maybe ought to behave in those ways.
That's what a social role is. It's a performative characteristic. So it looks like we're agreeing.
I don't
What I don't agree with, though, is that you're saying, again, these specific...
Michael's not a big debater.
Biological essentialism, which you cannot prove right now.
I wouldn't call myself a biological...
I wouldn't call myself, again, anything that is a thing that actually exists that you could understand that's coherent. I want to always be shifting. Just like before, I don't want to talk about natural law. I don't want to talk about biological essentialism, and it's the same thing, by the way, almost. But he doesn't want to get nailed down. He doesn't want to define what he does. It's ironic. He won't admit that he has an ideology, essentially, which is ironic.
Well, essentially,
you said things like chromosomes, genitals are the only things that can determine what people can.
I've never said that. When did I say that?
Oh, I'm glad we got to this point that they showed in the opening clip, and then we're going to stop right after this. I mean, maybe we'll just make it to the end of the claim.
We can rewind the prompts. You guys can go back and
No, we won't. We won't. We're going to end it sooner than the 420.
Good luck doing that.
What have you said then?
I agree with you that there is a...
Because this is a good ending point to realize that he won't even acknowledge he has an ideology, and that's the fundamental sort of part of this.
and performed aspects to gender. In fact, I agree that there is
I'm making an extremely basic point that doesn't have any of the implications I'm trying to imply it does.
a distinction to be had
Wow,
between
Judith
sex
Butler's
and gender.
disciple. We love to hear it,
No,
Michael.
Judith Butler goes a little wrong. I guess
I don't ask me how though, because I forget the article I read about her.
is that pro-trans people say that when you are a man, your body is that of a man, but you desire to behave in a way that is not like a man, that you should do that. And then actually you should change your body often to be more like the opposite.
Oh my God, he is just describing things in the most child level terms. Like, it's wild. Like, this is sort of how you might explain it to like a 5-year-old if you were like worried that, you know, they were bigoted or something and would only understand it in weird terms. I don't know. Sorry, that makes no sense.
And I guess my argument is
that's not something that's advocated for people who all experience gender dysphoria. There are certain instances where the medical community will say that this doesn't.
You don't think
people.
Yeah, like what about trans people that don't even like medically transition?
You don't think that puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones and surgeries are advocated for?
Let's stop doing this.
Well, I'm glad you know my name.
I never
now.
said that.
You did just say that.
I am being respectful this time.
Well, that's good.
Because I want to, just respect and show that it's not something that has to be proven on a piece of paper the way that we engage as a dialogue. So I'm just choosing to use the respectful terms that you've said, even though you still haven't proved that your name's Michael, by the way, which is a little bit weird.
Yeah.
But we'll continue to go back to not all medical professionals will advocate for gender-affirming care for every person that's trans. Oftentimes it's a social transition where people are just changing their name or the way that they're dressed. So let's just have some appropriate respect.
But that's a bad idea
Let's just treat people like society.
That's a bad idea.
Let's just treat people society.
It's so funny that you think you're this authority, man.
Correlated with all sorts of terrible outcomes, and it's contrary to reality.
Not true.
Is it?
So to your point,
wearing certain clothes is contrary to reality.
Yeah,
if you go to Scotland
behaving
and see
like a
someone in
woman
a kilt,
if you're a man
Michael?
is.
Are you crying because you see a man in a kilt?
Kilts are very masculine.
Oh wow, there you go.
I'm willing to.
Gender roles can change; they're malleable. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying
there's not something intrinsic that says I should wear this.
Not exactly. Fashions can change, but I'm willing to go further than maybe some.
He's so dumb. Like no one presses him on stuff ever on his show or anything.
My friends and colleagues and conservatives, which is that I don't think that gender is just your biology, because I don't think a human person is just a body. I'm not a materialist. I think that we're body and soul.
I'm a man in my soul.
I think that
so that goes back to again.
Oh, did he say what I just said?
I'm not a materialist. I think that we're body and soul. I think that
goes back to again you arguing from a religious perspective, which you have an American right to have,
or a philosophical
but it's an American right to have that
perspective,
lack of religious perspective too, and that's what I'm trying to be. I'm a patriotic man, Michael.
Right, but the
USA.
But I guess
should we have the freedom of expression? The First Amendment. That's what it's all for.
There's no First Amendment right to obscenity, first of all. But second
it's
of all,
it's obscene for me to wear a dress.
But the view
isn't it weird because I have XX chromosomes, Michael?
Yeah.
Big surprise.
You have XX chromosomes.
Yeah. Would you call me she, her now?
I don't. I'll
looks like
I'll defer to you. I don't remember your name. What is?
Do you think that the name is gonna help you decide on what you want to call him? Like, Michael, just like, you've never been exposed. Like, welcome to the world, Michael.
Oh, it looks like
I'll defer.
Let's watch that one more time. I'm so glad we made it to this point.
No, there's no First Amendment right to obscenity, first of all. But second
it's
of all,
obscene for me to wear a dress.
But the view
isn't it weird because I have XX chromosomes, Michael?
Yeah.
Big surprise.
You have XX chromosomes.
Yeah. Would you call me she, her now?
I don't. I'll
looks like
I'll defer to you.
I mean, Michael is just in a one fell swoop. Just like, again, all these people, they are wrong. It's just a matter of whether they're exposed to the evidence of them being wrong. And he has been over and over.
I don't remember your name. What is your name?
What would you say my name is?
I don't know.
You can determine. You just said easy. It's very easy to determine.
Well, I could say if you look more like a man or a woman. But what is your name? You look more like a man.
Okay.
With that question, you certainly do.
Thank you so much. Because I don't. I have XY chromosomes, by the way. But you little flustering right there is a little bit.
That is so funny.
It shows that you're like freaking out. I'm trying to figure out.
And that is possible. Obviously, people can have their chromosomes. And Michael, by not taking issue with the chromosomes, is admitting that he understands that people's chromosomes don't determine their gender presentation.
I don't think I'm freaking out. I think that people are intentionally confusing people in public, which is one of the problems of transgender.
Confusing.
Yeah, for a man to pretend to be a woman. That would be one example.
You've been saying that you're a man. I'm not seeing any masculine qualities, but I'll still call you a man for the rest of this video.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad you do.
Okay, we're
Because
obviously going
actually,
to make it to the end of the claim. One more minute.
Our identity as people doesn't depend upon some kind of performance. I don't need to wear a tank top or look like a big He-Man. There's just an objective reality.
He just said it did.
Formative characteristics. That is something that you just said. Rewind again, like 20 seconds.
There is, if you would listen to what I've said, there is obviously a socially enacted aspect to sex.
All right, there are aspects to things, but it doesn't depend on it. It depends on what I say it depends on.
The pro-trans people who are operating off of a religious, or rather irreligious, Gnostic anthropology say that when there is a distinction between the two, one should favor the fantasy over the biological reality. And what I'm saying is when there's
that's the craziest straw man.
Distinction between the two, which does sometimes happen, then if you're a fella, you should just act like a man.
Yeah, and you acting like a man.
Whoa, I wonder if he had ever... I wonder Michael Knowles. I wonder about Michael Knowles' experience with being told to be a man. I wonder if and when he's experienced men telling him to be a man and the context of those situations. Michael, you should do a video essay about that.
And again, is going to change depending on what the cultural context it is that you're residing in.
Yeah, not all that much.
As you just said.
You just
said, if I were...
We're not seahorses. I'm never going to give birth,
you'd be like, yo, that's a little bit weird. But just
but you do understand that nature works differently, and there's many different cases. And have you ever looked into the anthropological literature on this? No one has pushed him on it yet. I'm sure they will in the part we don't watch.
Have a plaid pattern on it, you're going to say it's masculine to wear a kilt. That's something that
the Scots are pretty. The Scots are pretty masculine. Yeah,
it's malleable.
The Scots are masculine in my mind.
Fashions change. Fashions change, but human nature.
And that's something that you just can't change, Michael. But I appreciate it. I'm sorry, Mindy.
Mindy, huh? All right. Say it again.
All right. Well, that was fun. I'm glad we did that. Good times, everyone. Thanks for watching, and thanks for supporting the channel. If you're watching this on the Patreon or the YouTube members page, which probably is where I'm going to put it, maybe I'll eventually release it to the public and be like, no, you know what? Maybe I won't. Tomorrow I'm going to do a podcast episode that will be for the public, because every third podcast episode is public, and that should be fun. But anyways, thanks for watching, and hope we learned a lot about ideologies and how they try to present themselves. And focus on, when you're having a debate, stick to a point, focus on it, zoom in on it, try to stick with it, stay calm. And, sometimes you can't get anywhere with someone because their career depends on them having bigoted views, but you win some, you lose some. And Michael lost this one.